for other religious activities or other religious festivals. The Karnataka state, represented by Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, opposed this, saying that the Waqf was never given title to the land. The 1964 judgment was based on use, was not to do with title, and there is no forum before which the title has in fact come up before the division bench of the High Court. Now they have said that certain things were not put out before the Supreme Court, that the municipal corporation was looking to build a school there, and was basically the state was basically countering and opposing the arguments of the Waqf that there is absolutely no title as far as the Waqf is concerned. Now the division bench of the Supreme Court said that they have a mixed opinion, and therefore they referred the matter to a three-judge bench. CJI Justice UU Lalit was approached immediately by the petitioners, and now in a few minutes time we expect him to return either with a bench or an understanding of what will happen further. But Madhav, just a few minutes from now we will get to know what exactly will take place.
Well, there was some difference between the two judges, and Harish Nair, in fact, our legal editor, bring us those updates from inside the court. And let me get in Deepak on this aspect as well. Deepak, now Justice Hemant Gupta was in favor of allowing Ganesh Chaturthi because he repeatedly told the Waqf Board that you offer prayer there for occupancy only on 2 days, and despite being your property as you claim ownership to, you allow Republic Day there. Justice Dhulia had said that long-standing revenue record shows that it's an Idgah, and therefore, in fact, the SG then responded saying that Supreme Court judgment said it's a government land. Justice Dhulia then remarked that merely because it's an open ground doesn't mean it's a government land. The Supreme Court judgment also says that it's a Qabristan. So there is a difference in opinion between the perception of what the two judges had, and ostensibly that's the reason why it was referred to a larger bench. Deepak.
Yes, and what the larger bench decides will be crucial here, Madhav, and especially whether there will be a decision by the end of this evening is also going to be very quintessential, especially considering that, the celebrations are planned for tomorrow at the Idgah Maidan. Police have been deployed in huge numbers. There are RAF platoons that are also deployed here. KSRP has been brought in. For the last 48 hours, there are multiple route marches in and around.
Please stay with us. Harish Nair, our legal editor, is bringing us the difference between the two judges in terms of what they remarked while on the bench, which is the reason why it was referred to a larger bench. Harish, quickly take us through the arguments of both the judges, because clearly their perceptions were quite different as far as this particular matter is concerned, and that's why it had to be referred to a larger bench.
Yes, that's precisely the reason why, Madhav, this matter has now been referred to a larger bench. At the moment, Justice Hemant Gupta said that apparently there are some difference between the two judges, his brother judge and himself. Immediately they had rushed to the Chief Justice's bench, who will in 5 minutes mention specify whether the hearing will happen just now at the residences of a three-judge bench. So now I'll bring out the differences. The difference of opinion between two is that, going by his remarks, Justice Hemant Gupta was in favor of allowing Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations tomorrow, as he repeatedly told the Waqf Board that you offer prayer there, you occupy for only 2 days, despite being your property as you claim ownership to, you allow Republic Day there. So, going by Hemant Gupta's observations, he was ready for allowing to be used for Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations tomorrow, but at the same time, Justice Dhulia said long-standing revenue records show it is a Idgah, and at that moment, Solicitor General said Supreme Court judgment said it's a government land, but Justice Dhulia objected to Solicitor General's remark and said merely because it's an open ground doesn't mean it's a government land. Supreme Court judgment also says it's a Qabristan. So, in fact, Justice Dhulia was of the clear opinion that since the Waqf Board has proved its ownership and therefore this celebration of another religion cannot be allowed there, the rights of the minorities have to be protected. They have a right to maintain and administer their property. So, given this deep differences between the two judges in the bench, now the matter has been referred to a three-judge bench, and anytime soon the Chief Justice bench will sit and pronounce the order as regards the setting up of a three-judge bench.
Right. Harish, we understand the Chief Justice bench is about to assemble. Take us through who are the other judges who will be hearing this matter along with Justice Lalit.
Now, no bench has been constituted by the Chief Justice because just after the senior advocates Huzefa Ahmadi and Dushan Deve and Kapil Sibal mentioned this matter before the Chief Justice, that Justice Hemant Gupta's bench has said that the matter should be heard by a 3-judge bench and this matter be referred to the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice said that let me see who are the judges available. Let us take a break of 5 minutes and decide who is the judge who can join this to judge, and who is the judge free available, who is free now and who is available now, and after 5 minutes we will know who is the composition of the bench, because while rising, Chief Justice has not specified who the 3rd judge will be. So all eyes on the Chief Justice Court right now.
Right.
A lot of drama unfolding here in the Supreme Court as far as the Dargah and the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations at the Idgah matter is concerned.
Thanks so much, Harish, for joining us and bring us all those updates from inside the Apex Court. We'll keep coming back to you for more information on the same. But let me go across to Nilashish. Nilashish, we understand that the bench is about to assemble, and this is going to be very, very important because this CJI Lalit-led bench will be deciding today perhaps on whether tomorrow's function of Ganesh Chaturthi will happen on the controversial spot of land, that is the Idgah Maidan.
Well, absolutely, Madhav. You and I continue to wait for this bench, in fact, to assemble. It has been approximately 15 minutes. But it's still not clear as to what bench will be constituted at this point. Let's not forget, at this point, there are several special benches that are sitting, so no particular 3-judge bench is available as such. So now the Chief Justice, as Harish also pointed out, has gone to check on which judges could be available for this particular bench, and we're expecting, given the fact that the CJI said that he will come back soon after having sought the papers and the documents of the particular case. He should be back soon, and we should have a bench for hearing. Let's not forget that the Supreme Court, whenever it has seen matters of urgency, has gone on deeper into the evening. So it's quite likely that after the special benches get over today, thereafter maybe it is possible that a bench will hear the matter as well. But this is all speculation. We will have a word soon from the Chief Justice with regard to the constitution of this particular bench. Of course, this comes after the division bench was not able to come to a consensus. They were divided in their opinion. Again, as Harish pointed out, the two differences in opinion led to this referral to a 3-judge bench, and the constitutional questions involved in it could be something of great significance, given the fact that the Waqf Board did invoke Article 26 and 25 of the Constitution, saying that minority rights are of importance with regard to owning their property and also doing as they please with it. The issue that was raised by the Supreme Court, the 2-judge bench, was also about offering prayers only twice a day, but to that the Waqf Board said that if we want, we can have a congregation there every day, but we choose what happens when we own the property. But the state government, of course, clearly of the opinion and countering that argument, saying that the Waqf does not indeed own that particular property.
Right.
The case is referred to, the judgment of the Supreme Court is only and only based on use of land. But at any moment now, we could expect, Madhav, that a bench will be constituted, and we will have further information from the Chief Justice.
Well, absolutely. And what is very interesting to note also, Nilashish, is the number of times the bench asked whether, in fact, they were the owners, because there are a number of questions that came in as far as the ownership of the land, saying that Republic Day, Independence Day also celebrated on the same land. Are you the owners? To which, of course, there was a lot of back and forth between the court and the bench. Take us through what exactly happened over here between the bar and the bench, the exchange that we saw on the issue of ownership today.
Well, as far as the ownership is concerned, as we were discussing, Madhav, the Waqf Board clearly of the opinion that we have been here for 200 years. It is our land, we choose what we do with it, be it a national festival like Independence Day, Republic Day. We are all for it. They said that there is a playground there, that is not an issue. But when it comes to other religious festivals, we cannot allow that. That's why we draw a line. Now, of course, Justice Hemant Gupta asked whether the land was only used for 2 days for prayer. Now thereafter, when the state government was which was represented by Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, stated that the judgment that is being relied upon was not with regard to title. It had nothing to do with ownership. It was only with regard to use of land, and then stated that this was a Maidaan on which permission for only 2 days was going to be given for Ganesh Utsav, and thereafter it could be used as a playground again. In fact, the municipal corporation, it was informed by the state government, was looking to build a school on it. Now, as far as the ownership is concerned, of course, the interpretation of that 1964 judgment is what comes into being. Of course, the Waqf Board using it in its favor, the state government saying that that is not...
Alright, big breaking news coming in, Nilashish. The bench has been formed. The Chief Justice has informed that Justice Indira Banerjee, Justice Sundaresh and Justice A.S. Okay will be part of this bench. Very, very important. In fact, the CJI also saying that he's been able to form the bench. It is Justice Banerjee, Justice A.S. Oka and Justice M.M. Sundaresh. This will happen in Court 4. Please give them the paper books to the judges. Give the judges 15 to 20 minutes. Both the judges, of course, in the earlier bench are not there. So it is a completely fresh bench that is going to look into this entire matter, Nilashish, and all the three judges who are looking into this are completely new to the matter. They have asked for 15 to 20 minutes for the judges to go through the paper books to take a final call on this, and very, very important hearing happening, and this of course is going to now in another 15 to 20 minutes begin in the Apex Court. Nilashish, very quickly.
Well, Madhav, as far as this case is concerned, we are expecting the matter to begin at 4:35 p.m. The CJI has said that he has constituted a bench, a special bench comprising of Indira Banerjee, Justice Sundaresh and Justice A.S. Oka. Of course, a completely new bench. We initially expected that Justice Dhulia might be a part of it, but this is a special bench in court number 4 that is already sitting, headed by Justice Indira Banerjee. So, of course, the three-judge bench will now hear this matter afresh. The documents which were sought initially by the Chief Justice has been given to this particular bench to consider this. So, of course, the paperwork will be looked into for over the next 15 to 20 minutes. Thereafter, at 4:35, as we expect from our sources, the matter will commence as far as the hearing is concerned.
Well, very, very important. Let me take this across to Deepak as well. Deepak also with us. Deepak, this is very, very crucial because at 4:35 we expect to see the three-judge bench that has been constituted by the Chief Justice hearing this entire matter. We have already heard the exchange that took place for about a little over an hour in the other division bench that was earlier hearing this matter. The two judges, of course, of very, very different opinions, but the fact of ownership, the question of ownership coming in again and again with various aspects of the ownership, the 62 judgment being referred to, the 64 judgment, I beg your pardon, in that case being referred to as well. But at the end of the day, the questions that have come up before the High Court once again being resonated here in the Apex Court.
Yes, it's going to be very, key to note about how this new bench is going to look into this particular matter, because earlier we saw a statement that's being made that the use of land is going to be looked into and not the ownership, because the issue of ownership, if it comes up, the documentation will be quite voluminous. They could, seek for more time, but since this matter in question is about whether a Ganesha, a pandal or festivities can be held at the Idgah Maidan, so it becomes very important that a decision in this regard is made as soon as possible, preferably by the end of this evening, so that the state government has clarity in terms of what to do, what to allow, especially at the Idgah Maidan, which at this point in time has become a spot full of policemen, full of high security, and also intelligence officers collecting information, giving it to the Home Ministry, very often, so that if the Ganesha festivities are actually allowed at the Maidan, they do not want a situation where the law and order is a state of concern. So this particular bench now listening, hearing this particular matter is going to probably look into the usage of land, because earlier we saw some mentions being made about while they did allow twice a year for Independence Day and Republic Day for flag hoisting, if it was actually a Waqf.
Alright, another 20 minutes to go for that very important hearing. Deepak and Nilashish, please stay with us. We're going to keep coming back to you for all the courtroom drama, but for the moment we're shifting focus to another bit of breaking news that's coming in at the moment, and this is Anna Hazare, who has in fact spoken about how this entire matter of the liquor scam and his response to it in the national capital. He says that जिस तरह शराब का नशा होता है उसी तरह केजरीवाल को सत्ता और पैसे का नशा चढ़ा है. ये अरविंद पहले वाला अरविंद नहीं, शराब नीति गलत है. वक्त आने पर आंदोलन के बारे में बताएंगे. Anna Hazare, the mentor of Arvind Kejriwal, has spoken out. Of course, he's spoken out in the past, but in this context of the liquor policy, Anna Hazare being extremely critical of the actions of the Delhi government and has in that light criticized Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party for what really has been seen. Remember that it was on the coattails of Anna Hazare and his India Against Corruption movement that about a decade and a half ago, Arvind Kejriwal came into the limelight, and it is following that we have seen how in fact a crackdown on corruption, particularly demanding for a Lokpal to be established by the government of India, all of those demands that were there in place, that in fact we saw taking place, that particular movement in the national capital several times, that Anna Hazare has sat on fast. Arvind Kejriwal also with him at those protests demanding action against corruption. Now Anna Hazare, at a time when there is a liquor scam, in fact training his guns at Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party government in the national capital. Listening to the mentor-in-chief of Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party.
पॉलिसी एक गलत बनाई जिसमें महिलाओं को तकलीफ होगा, समाज में प्रदूषण बढ़ेगा और हमारी युवा शक्ति जो राष्ट्र शक्ति है वो युवा शक्ति बर्बाद हो जाएगी. इसलिए मैंने उसको लिखा. नहीं, नीति बनाए वो गलत बनाए ना, वो गलत बनाए इसलिए तो मैंने लेटर लिखा कि ऐसी नीति बनाना ठीक नहीं. जो नीति सिर्फ सत्ता और पैसा सिखाती है.
Let's go across to Arunil for more on this. Arunil, Anna Hazare has been a mentor for Arvind Kejriwal, but today coming out to very openly and clearly and unequivocally criticize the liquor policy of the Delhi government.
Well, this aggressive criticism by none other than Arvind Kejriwal, by Anna Hazare, beg your pardon, clearly puts Arvind Kejriwal as well as his supporters in a tight spot, because we have seen how Arvind Kejriwal as well as Manish Sisodia to a very large extent, they have grown under the wings of Anna Hazare during the anti-corruption movement. Now, whenever there has been a criticism to Arvind Kejriwal, particularly from the BJP, he has called it as selective targeting. He has also called it as political vendetta. Now, what exactly Arvind Kejriwal will be saying now, considering his own mentor, his own guru, Anna Hazare, the social crusader, the anti-corruption crusader, is speaking against him? That will be very interesting. Will Arvind Kejriwal now call Anna Hazare also basically say that this is also political vendetta? Whether he will say that Anna Hazare is working for the BJP, whether he will say that Anna Hazare is doing is selectively targeting him, that is the big question that comes to the fore. When it comes to the attack that Anna Hazare has made, Anna Hazare has been known for speaking against liquor ban as well.
Stay with us, Arunil, stay with us. There is some more information coming in now. The issue of the scams in Delhi once again being protested by the BJP. The BJP is now leading these protests against the Aam Aadmi Party. I believe Mayank is joining us from that spot where the protest is currently underway, and we will try and cut across live to Mayank. Mayank, if you can hear me, take us through what's happening at that particular protest. Alright, we don't have Mayank just yet. We will try and reconnect with Mayank in just a minute, because he's at that location where the protests are currently taking place against the Aam Aadmi Party, that is the BJP, which is protesting on this issue. Leaders of the BJP, including several MLAs, MPs from the national capital, are present at that location, and of course a police present in heavy numbers there as well to ensure no untoward incident take place. And we are looking at the BJP leaders in those visuals. In fact, that is Ramesh Veduri, Member of Parliament from New Delhi, who is in fact present at that location, addressing the gathering and in fact leading this particular protest against the Delhi government and the Aam Aadmi Party here in the national capital. So this is as far as this particular protest is concerned. The BJP protesting against the Aam Aadmi Party. We will try and connect with our reporters at the very earliest, but we are in fact and have been reporting from these locations where the protests are currently underway about what really is the priority of the Delhi government. Remember, the BJP has been trying to put the Aam Aadmi Party government on the mat ever since not just the liquor scam and the raids have taken place, but also of course allegations of wrongdoing in the education sector as well. Let's go across to Mayank for more on this. Mayank, what's happening at this protest? Take us through who all have gathered over there. What exactly is the BJP planning to do?
Well, BJP has staged the protest at the civil lines towards the residence of the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal.
And where are they heading towards at the moment, Mayank?
Well, they are heading towards Aam Aadmi Party Supremo Arvind Kejriwal's residence, but Delhi police have deployed heavy security, and that's why they are going towards Rajghat, because remember, they have mounted this attack against Aam Aadmi Party on the issue of morality as well, and that's why they have also roped in Anna Hazare on this point, because Ramesh Viduri, the member of parliament from South Delhi, said that, you know, the Anna Hazare movement, from where Arvind Kejriwal political platform from which he started ruling in the national capital region. So that is wrong on all fronts, including the liquor front, because he was always against liquor, as Anna Hazare has always said, and that's the point. Ramesh Viduri is also claiming that, you know, Anna Hazare will have to come to Maidan once again and stage a protest against Arvind Kejriwal, whom he groomed in the political role, you know, when India Against Corruption began. So that is the flashpoint starting to begin between the Aam Aadmi Party, and now with Anna Hazare coming into the picture, BJP are once again up in the arms, and Ramesh Viduri is very vehemently attacking Arvind Kejriwal over the liquor policy, saying that there was a level of corruption in the liquor policy,
right.
That the fact that Arvind Kejriwal had to go back to the old policy, you know, it kind of ratifies the point that the BJP has always been claiming about, you know, scams of 1,000 crores in the liquor policy.
All right, thanks so much for joining us back with that update, because soon after Aam Aadmi Party's self-clean sheet earlier today, the BJP has hit out at the party for acting as an investigating agency. Listen in.
मनीष सिसोदिया तो आरोपी हैं। पहली बार मैं देख रहा हूं कि आरोपी ही जज बन के बता रहा है कि कुछ नहीं मिला। आरोपी एजेंसी की तरह व्यवहार कर रहा है। मनीष सिसोदिया जी, आप एक्यूज नंबर 1 हैं, और क्या क्या इन कड़ियां जुड़ी हैं, इसमें आपके कहने से नहीं माना जाएगा। एजेंसी का जो इन्वेस्टिंग ऑफिसर है वो बयान देगा, और मुझे लगता है वो बयान तब आएगा जब इनकी चार्जशीट तैयार होगी।
और दिल्ली के मुख्यमंत्री जी को बताऊंगा, दिल्ली के टैक्स पेयर के पैसे को भ्रष्टाचार में उड़ाने का और लूटने का काम किया है, जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी होने नहीं देगी। और शायद यही कारण है कि बौखला गए। वो बौखला के कल रात को तो इतनी बौखलाहट हो गई कि ऊल जलूल आरोप उपराज्यपाल जी के ऊपर, कभी कुछ कह रहे थे, कभी मुद्दे को भटका रहे थे।
All right, massive political face-off here in the national capital between the AAP and the BJP that's being witnessed. For the moment, we're slipping into a very quick break.
Let me categorically say we reject the insinuations in such statements about India. Sri Lanka is a sovereign country and makes its own independent decisions.
Thanks for staying with us here on Times Now. I'm Kritsween Wala. Let's quickly start with an update we're tracking from Jharkhand, wherein in the recent past a big political crisis has been witnessed, and as a result we can see Jharkhand MLAs now leaving for the airport. They're being taken to Raipur. Now Jharkhand's ruling Congress JMM, remember, coalition is now moving its MLAs given poaching fares and is undergoing a political crisis. The state is witnessing a political crisis, and amidst all of that, the MLAs are now being flown out of the state. They're being taken to Raipur is the latest bit of breaking news coming in. Now remember, already there is a lot of pressure that is being built by the opposition BJP seeking Chief Minister Hemant Soren's disqualification from the assembly in an office of profit case. And while several questions are being asked of the Congress JMM coalition in Jharkhand with regards to the law and order situation in the state, this is the reality, viewers. You have Hemant Soren along with some of the MLAs now leaving the state for Raipur. Here's a ground report on the same.
छत्तीसगढ़ के नवा रायपुर का ये वही मेफेयर रिसोर्ट्स है जहां पर झारखंड से विधायक पहुंचने वाले हैं। झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा और कांग्रेस के तमाम विधायक अब से कुछ ही देर बाद जो है रायपुर के इसी मेफेयर रिसोर्ट में पहुंचने वाले हैं। और ये देख सकते हैं कि विधायकों के आने को लेकर जो है यहाँ पर सरकार ने सुरक्षा व्यवस्था यहाँ पर तैनात कर दी है। ये तमाम जो है सुरक्षा कर्मी यहाँ पर तैनात किए गए हैं। इसके अलावा जो है अंदर रिसोर्ट्स में भी जो है कई पुलिस कर्मियों की तैनाती की गई है। ये देख सकते हैं कि ये सुरक्षा व्यवस्था यहाँ पर तैनात है। और ये बताइए कि कहाँ से लोग आने वाले हैं यहाँ पर, क्यों सुरक्षा व्यवस्था तैनात की गई है? कुछ वीआईपी आने वाले हैं क्या? ये देखिए, अभी फिलहाल जो है पुलिस के जो आला अधिकारी हैं ये कुछ कह नहीं रहे, लेकिन यहाँ पर जो है रिसोर्ट्स में तमाम व्यवस्था कर दी गई है। लगभग 40 कमरे यहाँ पर बुक कर दिए गए हैं और यहाँ पर कई अधिकारी भी अब से कुछ ही देर पहले पहुँचे थे और पूरा यहाँ पर बता दिया गया है अधिकारियों को कि किसी से कोई बातचीत नहीं करनी है। लेकिन जो सोर्स हैं हमारे वो बता रहे हैं कि इसी मेफेयर रिसोर्ट्स में जो है अब से कुछ ही देर बाद जो है झारखंड से जब विधायक चलेंगे उसके बाद जो है रायपुर एयरपोर्ट पहुंचेंगे और रायपुर एयरपोर्ट से जो है 2 बसें वहां से विधायकों को लेके जो है इसी रिसोर्ट पे आएगी और यहाँ पर लगभग जो है 2 से 3 दिन जो है विधायक यहाँ रह सकते हैं। इसी के मद्देनजर यहाँ पर छत्तीसगढ़ सरकार द्वारा सुरक्षा व्यवस्था तैनात की गई है।
देखिए नंद, जैसा कि टाइम्स नाउ नव भारत ने सुबह ही अपने दर्शकों को बताया था कि ये विधायक जो हैं उनको रांची से शिफ्ट किया जाएगा और उनके सामान जो है पहले ही 3 गाड़ियों से एयरपोर्ट 1 घंटे पहले पहुंचा दिए गए थे। अब से कुछ ही देर पहले मुख्यमंत्री आवास के अंदर से 2 बड़ी वॉल्वो बस जो है वो निकली है और आपने तस्वीरों में देखा होगा कि मुख्यमंत्री हेमंत सोरेन जो है वो खुद वॉल्वो बस में पहली सीट पर बैठे हुए थे और उनके चेहरे की जो भाव भंगिमा थी वो ये दिखाने का प्रयास कर रहे थे कि हमारे विधायक जो है वो पूरी तरीके से एकजुट हैं और हम जो है बीजेपी की किसी चाल को कामयाब नहीं होने देंगे। तो मुख्यमंत्री आवास का जो पिछला गेट था जहां हम मौजूद थे वहां से जो बसें हैं वो निकल चुकी हैं। अगर मैं आगे की तस्वीर दिखा पाऊं, हमारे सहयोगी मनोज लगातार आपको तस्वीरें दिखा रहे हैं। चूंकि ये वीवीआईपी मूवमेंट है इसलिए गाड़ियों को रोका गया है। मुख्यमंत्री के साथ साथ जो उनके सरकारी काफिले के साथ जो कॉन्वॉय चलती है वो भी है और प्रॉपर रूट लगाया गया है जिसकी वजह से जो आम पब्लिक की गाड़ियां हैं उनको रोका जा रहा है और ये काफिला जो है यहां से निकल चुका है और लगभग 10 से 15 मिनट के बाद ये पहुंचेगा रांची के एयरपोर्ट पर जहां पर सरकार की तरफ से एक चार्टर्ड प्लेन जो है वो बुक किया गया है और ये यहां से अपने विधायकों को लेकर जाएंगे। देखिए, दो तरह की बातें यहां पर चल रही हैं। पहली बात यह चल रही है कि कांग्रेस पार्टी को डर लग रहा है कि उनके विधायकों से कहीं कोई संपर्क ना कर ले, इसीलिए अविनाश पांडे जो है वो यहां पर लगातार कैंप किए हुए हैं। और कांग्रेस रूल्ड स्टेट है छत्तीसगढ़, इसलिए हो सकता है कि अपने विधायकों को वो वहां पर ज्यादा सेफ महसूस कराएं, इसलिए विधायकों को वहां लेकर जा रहे हैं।
And moving on to more breaking news coming in, the Kerala Assembly has passed the controversial Lokayukta Amendment Bill 2022. With the amendment, the state government will get the power to either accept or reject the verdict of the anti-corruption body, the Lokayukta, after giving an opportunity to be heard. Now, the Congress, remember, had opposed the bill, stating that this is a threat to the way the Lokayukta is said to be acting, and boycotted the session, stating it will be written as a black day in the history of Kerala Assembly. That was the Congress's stand all throughout. But yes, Lokayukta powers have been usurped by the government. Kerala Assembly has passed this very controversial bill because this was in the news for the longest time now, and the opposition kept saying that the government wants to replace the governor as the competent authority. The Kerala Lokayukta Bill 2022 raised the political temperatures in the state. The last couple of days have been extremely intense with regards to political commentary that has been coming in on the same. Let me go across to Sharon joining us with more details. Sharon, the opposition kept saying that the government wants to replace the governor as the competent authority, given the comments and the developments that were taking place around this very bill. But this is big breaking news coming in.
Well, that is right, and in fact the opposition parties, including the Congress, was opposing this. The Congress has in fact stated that and also has in fact boycotted this bill, stating it is in fact a black day in the history of the Kerala Assembly. We have seen the BJP also in fact opposing this in the Assembly, but overall we are seeing that the Kerala Assembly has passed this controversial Lokayukta Amendment Bill, and the state government will now get the power to either accept or reject the verdict of the anti-corruption body and the Lokayukta after
Alright, we'll try and get that audio of the Chief Minister there now outside the airport, as you can see, viewers. But big questions that are being asked of the Soren government at the moment, though they're busy packing their bags and running away from the state. They're not just evading all those political questions that are staring at them, but all the law and order questions, all the questions surrounding safety of women in the state. If we talk about the incident in Dumka, if we talk about the incident in Ranchi, there are questions being asked of the Soren government. But there you have the Chief Minister along with MLAs busy saving his chair. You can see amidst the political crisis, the opposition BJP, remember, has been seeking the Chief Minister's disqualification from the Assembly in an office of profit case, and to save his chair, to save his government, he along with his MLAs, fearing poaching, are now fleeing to Raipur. But yes, you can see the visuals speaking for themselves. That's one of the accused in the Dumka case, and horrific details that have come to light. No concrete action or accountability that is being given by the JMM government, who is being asked questions on the safety of women, the law and order situation in the state. Dodging all of those questions, this is the gesture that the Chief Minister is going ahead with in fleeing the state to Raipur. So he's busy saving his chair. It is the political crisis that holds utmost importance in his heart, is what we can make of these very developments. Let me go across to Mohit. Mohit, now there has been constant pressure from the opposition BJP to save his chair. The Chief Minister along with MLAs, his MLAs can be seen leaving for Raipur, but big questions really on the law and order situation, on the existing state of affairs in Jharkhand. Who's going to answer all of that? Who's going to take care of the ground situation? Mohit.
Well, yes. Could you please repeat your question?
Mohit, the timing of it all is extremely questionable given the kind of incidents that have come to light from Dumka, from Ranchi. The law and order situation in the state really needs utmost urgency, something that the Chief Minister's government, his netas must be focusing on, rather they're busy fleeing to Raipur.
Well, that is the sad part of politics, Katrina, you know, on a day when there has been a chorus for...
Coming in, I'm sorry for that, Mohit, we need to shift our focus to the state of Karnataka, and this is big breaking news coming in, viewers. As far as the Hubli Idgah Maidan controversy goes, the Karnataka High Court has dismissed the petition of Muslim groups that had challenged the municipal corporation's decision to allow Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations at the Idgah grounds in Hubli. Now, shortly, the top court will be taking up the case that is pending with regards to the Bengaluru Idgah Maidan, but this is the news, the word coming in from the Karnataka High Court that has dismissed the petition of the Muslim groups. That's a development that took place just today, that they challenged the municipal corporation's decision to allow Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations. Now the Karnataka High Court has dismissed that petition that was filed earlier on by the Muslim groups. This is big breaking news coming in. At least a clear word that has been sent out with regards to one of the two issues that we saw come to light from Karnataka with regards to the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations, because tomorrow is when these plans have been laid out for. And big breaking news coming in at the moment, viewers. Let me go across to Imran joining us with more details. Imran, Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations have been allowed at the Idgah ground in Hubli. The Karnataka High Court has dismissed the petition by the Muslim groups. What more can you tell us?
Well, absolutely. In fact, the Anjuman-e-Islam Trust, the apex body of the Muslim groups in Hubli, had challenged the decision of the local municipal body which allowed that Ganesh Chaturthi Pandal to be given permission at the historic Hubli Idgah Maidan ground. This is the first time that the municipal body had taken a decision. They said that they're given limited only for one group to be allowed to put a pandal there, and this decision came late in the night yesterday, and the Muslim groups under the Anjuman Islamic Trust had moved to the Karnataka High Court, the Dharwad bench of the Karnataka High Court, saying that the decision of the municipal body is illegal and the decision should be should be allowed. But hearing the petition, it came up at 11 in the morning. It was moved to 2:30 in the afternoon. The arguments went on between both the parties. The Anjuman Islamic Trust said that it's a Waqf land and they have the property, and since the past several years only Muslim prayers is allowed, and this should not be allowed, and this decision is taken unilaterally by the municipal body. But the court, however, has said dismissed the petition, saying that allowing the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations to be celebrated at the Idgah grounds in Hubli for the next 3 days.
All right. Imran, this is also very important given that two such incidents and controversies have come to light. One, of course, in Hubli, the other one coming in from Bengaluru. We're yet to hear from the top court and we're standing by for that. But here also the main contention was that since the Hubli Municipal Corporation has allowed Ganesh idols at the Idgah ground, the Muslim groups decided to move the Karnataka High Court, contending that very move by the Municipal Corporation. They kept saying that they are the sole owners of the land and hence will decide what kind of activities can take place. So a stark similarity between the two, really.
Absolutely, and in fact now as we speak, the arguments going to commence at 4:30, which started with the Supreme Court on the in the Chamarajpet, the Bengaluru Idgah Maidan ground also. So very shortly we'll hear what the apex court has to say. There also the Waqf Board claimed that the title suit of the land belongs to them and they are the sole decision maker as to what to be allowed or not. And they've been saying that for the past several years only 2 times Eid Namaaz have been allowed there, and apart from that on the Independence Day and Republic Day flag hoisting is done, and the rest of the time the ground is used for public utility service as playground for the nearby children of the locality. The court, however, questioned it if they have only celebrating 2 times, why are they celebrating the Independence Republic Day, and if why the rest of the year the ground is empty, what is the point if given to other festivities, what is the objection there? So arguments are going on in the court, whereas the Waqf side is saying that its property belongs to them and if given for permission for Ganesh Chaturthi, it could lead to vitiate the atmosphere and lead to communal tension in the area.
Let's see how the 3-judge bench takes up the issue now. Minutes to go before we hear on that front. But Imran, to quickly put this in perspective with regards to the Idgah ground in Hubli. Take us through the history. What does history tell us? What kind of events, cultural events, religious events have we seen take place on this very ground?
This Idgah ground has been a bone of contention for several years now. In fact, during there was a big campaign started 2 decades ago when Uma Bharti had also come to Hubli for a flag hoisting program there, and it led to a lot of communal clashes in the Hubli. And after that, every time during a common festivals come between Muslims and Hindus, it always leads to kind of a tense atmosphere in Hubli, and especially over the issue of the Idgah Maidan for permission to be given on that ground. But this time the municipal council has said that given Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations, permission for Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations only to a limited pandals. There has been a body has been formed for the who to be allowed to be in that pandal, but nevertheless permission has been given, and even Shriram Sene, Muhammad Mutalik yesterday celebrated it by distributing a big victory for the Hindu groups who have been demanding for several years that the Ganesh Chaturthi celebration should be allowed in Idgah Maidan ground, and now the municipal body has given the permission. The Muslim body Anjuman Islamic Trust, which is the main body of the Muslims in Hubli, had moved to the High Court, but the High Court has dismissed the petition, allowing the Ganesh Chaturthi function to continue for the next 3 days at the historic Hubli Idgah Maidan, which for the past 2 decades have seen many contentions over it, and even communal clashes, and many incidents of rioting also happened over this issue.
Yes, interestingly, as the matter is still pending before the top court with regards to the Bengaluru Idgah ground, remember Imran, what's very, very interesting is that there as well the Karnataka High Court had given a nod to the government to go ahead with those kind of celebrations, take out an order with regards to the Ganesh Chaturthi celebration. So let's see how that plays out in the top court. Nilashish is joining us with more details for the same. Nilashish, we have a final word on the 3-judge bench. They will be hearing the matter today itself. How soon can we expect developments to take place? As far as the Hubli Idgah ground controversy around Ganesh Chaturthi goes, big relief coming in for the Hindu groups.
Well, definitely, Kutsween. The fact that the Chief Justice took on the urgency of the matter and has come up with a bench which will hear the matter, it shows the urgency, of course, of this particular case. Now, the 2-judge bench, of course, was not able to come to a consensus. Therefore, they referred it to a 3-judge bench, and now a bench headed by Justice Indra Banerjee, comprising also of Justice Oka and Sundaresh, will take up the matter soon. We're expecting the bench to assemble. In fact, the bench has, as we speak, assembled, and the hearing is beginning now at this point as we speak. These, of course, are breaking inputs coming in from our legal editor, Harish Nair, who is giving us these updates from inside court. The bench has assembled, the hearing has just begun, of course, and we expect the arguments to be on those same lines as we had seen, as were in front of the 2-judge bench of the Supreme Court. The issues that the Waqf Board was raising, that there is no contention that the land, the property belongs to us, and we can do as we please with it, even if it is stated for prayers for 2 days in a year. We can also have a congregation, a religious congregation every day if we want. We allow national festivals like Independence Day and Republic Day to be conducted, but we draw the line when it comes to a religious festival of any other community. That was the line of argument from the petitioners there. Now, of course, Kapil Sibal appearing for the Waqf Board, of course, says that in 200 years no other community has been allowed to perform rituals here, and again referring to the 1964 judgment that was so widely relied upon and heavily relied upon by the Waqf Board. The 2 councils, senior councils, appearing on part of the Waqf Board, stating that we have used this land, it is ours, it is our property for the last 200 years, and the 1964 judgment is something that buttresses our argument. Of course, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, appearing for the state of Karnataka, had earlier stated that this judgment is only based on land use. It has nothing to do with title, and the title has not been presented before any forum whatsoever. So, of course, as of now, Kapil Sibal is arguing, contending that the High Court order is in violation of the 1964 judgment of the Supreme Court. And of course, senior advocate Dushyant Dave had also raised the issues of Article 25 and 26 with regard to freedom of religious practice. Now that is something that will also be looked into by the special bench that has been constituted. So you can see the hearing is on at this point, and there's very similar arguments, of course, as were made before the two-judge bench, are being presented by the senior counsel here as well. It is being said by Kapil Sibal that the situation prevailing in the area has become tense on account of the dispute, which he says was mischievously sought to be created by the state government, and if the High Court order is allowed to operate, it would aggravate matters further, leading to irreparable harm to communal harmony in the area. In fact, this is the line that has been taken by the Waqf Board since yesterday when it was mentioned before the Chief Justice, saying that this requires urgent hearing because not only has the Waqf Board owned this land, has been using this land for the last 200 years, but of late there is a possibility of communal tension that could be created by the High Court order. Now, Kapil Sibal is also saying that the High Court of Karnataka, the division bench, granted permission to the Karnataka government to consider and pass appropriate directions. Now, the bench has passed the order on the state government plea, challenging a single judge bench order directing to maintain status quo. Of course, he's apprising the court, this special bench, of the facts of this case, what has happened and what exactly is being challenged by the Waqf Board and the Muslim Association before the Apex Court at this point. So if we look into what has happened so far, similar arguments being raised, the submission and argument regarding the possibility of communal tension being created by the High Court order is also being pushed forward by Kapil Sibal, who is appearing for the Waqf Board.
Yes, similar arguments being presented by Kapil Sibal, though in front of a different bench, this time of Justice Indira Banerjee, Justice A.S.O.K. and Justice M.M. Sundaresh. Now, Nilashish, with regards to the line of argument of the Waqf Board, like you pointed out, the Waqf Board has once again reiterated how in 200 years no other community has been allowed to perform rituals here, but once again have heavily relied on the 1964 judgment. It says this is covered, all of this is covered in its entirety in our favor by a judgment of 1964 by Justice Hidayatullah.
Well, yes, absolutely. Main crux of the argument is the reliance on the 1964 judgment, which did say that the corporation did not own the land. Now, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, before the two-judge bench of the Supreme Court, also stated that this judgment is in fact about land use and not to do with title, as we were discussing earlier. So that will be the counter coming in from the state of Karnataka. But of course, the Waqf Board says we have been using this, it has been 200 years, there is no doubt about the land usage or about the ownership and the possession. Therefore, they say that because we own the land, we can choose how to use it, be it for offering prayers even twice in a year. Let's not forget, it's the Idgah ground, so the Idgah Maidan, which means that only on the days of Eid they have had prayers. But before the previous bench, the senior counsel Dushyant Dave also said that if required, we can have a religious congregation there every day, but it is our choice. It is a playground, yes. We are okay with it being a playground. We're okay with the Maidaan being used for Independence Day celebrations, for Republic Day celebrations, but that is our choice. Of course, as we said earlier as well, the Karnataka state has said that it is an open ground, there are no boundaries to it, and they will of course distinguish the aspect of land use and title
Okay.
as far as this
So,
particular
yes.
property is concerned.
Nilashish,
to say
Kapil
that
Sibal says,
judgment-
he's talking about the timeline here. He says Karnataka High Court's division bench granted permission to the government to consider and pass appropriate directions. The division bench passed an order on the state government plea challenging a single judge bench order directing to maintain the status quo. Single bench, he says, had ruled in our favor by ordering a status quo, and we've come here against the division bench. Let's put this in perspective for our viewers to help them understand the timeline. 25th of August is the High Court order that Kapil Sibal is talking about, and 26th of August, the next very day, remember, is when the division bench said state can allow religious or cultural festivities.
Well, yes, absolutely. As we were discussing, Kapil Sibal taking the Supreme Court bench. Of course, it's a new bench, so it needs to be apprised afresh of the entire issue. They were provided with the documents soon after they were referred the matter. Kapil Sibal informing the court that on the 25th of August, as you pointed out, there was a status quo that was ordered. On the 26th thereafter, the division bench of the High Court said that the state government can pass appropriate orders as it deems fit, essentially allowing the order of the High Court to allow Ganesh Utsav at the particular Maidaan. Now, what has been said previously with regard to this particular sequence of events is also that the state had never challenged, or the corporation rather, the municipal corporation had never challenged the title of the Waqf Board as far as this particular ground is concerned before the 26th of August, when they said that, when they raised a dispute that there was a title dispute with regard to this particular ground in front of the division bench of the High Court. So that is something that is also being apprised as far as the Supreme Court is concerned.
Right.
Now,
Stay with us now.
of course,
Nilashish, some updates coming in from the court. Justice Sundaresh has said only Ramzan and Bakrid prayers have been allowed. What's your objection? The Kapil Sibal responds to that, saying the division bench modified the order. Supreme Court bench then says, so your objection to use the ground for any other purpose, is it in relation to only one festival, is the question that comes in before Kapil Sibal, and then he says the character of land is sought to be changed. That is the word coming in from Kapil Sibal. So confirming really that the character of the land should not be changed. He has in fact read out now a portion of the Karnataka High Court division bench order which allowed Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations at the Idgah Maidan. And Nilashish, if you can quickly take us through that portion of the High Court division bench order which allowed Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations.
Well, yes, absolutely, Madhav. Kapil Sibal is buttressing his point that this could, in fact, change the character of the land, and he reads out the order, the relevant portion, saying the Indian society comprises religious, linguistic, regional or sectional diversities. The Constitution of India itself fosters brotherhood amongst various sections of the society. The principle of religious tolerance is the characteristic of Indian civilization. We therefore, at this stage, in the peculiar facts of the case, modify the interim order dated 25th of August and permit the state government to consider and pass appropriate orders on applications received by the Deputy Commissioner seeking use of the land in question for holding religious and cultural activities for a limited period from the 31st of August onwards. So what again he is trying to say and distinguish is that the order will change the character of the land, where he says that the Waqf owns the property, but through this order it will seem to allow any community to in fact use the land, which is not acceptable to the Waqf Board.
Across to Brajesh Kalapa. Brajesh Kalapa, very interesting arguments or developments that have taken place. First, there was a two-judge bench that heard the matter, and later, of course, the divisions and their positions were quite clear in terms of the exchanges that they had with the various legal councils. Now, in fact, we are looking at the three-judge bench that has been constituted by the CJI, that is listening to this matter or hearing this matter on a very urgent basis. So, we have Kapil Sibal saying that this entire matter, and in fact a question coming in from the bench, is it only for festivals tomorrow, that is Ganesh Chaturthi, or others as well, that this objection is there? Kapil Sibal says no, all religious festivals apart from Ramzan and Bakrid are allowed in the Maidaan. He has also read out the portion of the High Court Division Bench order which allowed Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations, saying that Indian society comprises religious, linguistic, regional or sectional diversities. The Constitution of India itself fosters brotherhood amongst various sections of society, but also not before, in fact, the earlier bench had also questioned gone through the entire issue of ownership, whether the documents are there, to which Kapil Sibal has said yes, it is there. This itself is a position that was challenged by the Solicitor General representing the government of Karnataka.
Yeah, so basically I think the arguments are still on. I think we'll have to see what the court finally holds, because I think it's one view that the Maidaan is restricted for use by a particular community, and I think the High Court has already decided that every community has a claim on this Maidaan. And keeping this in mind, we have also had an earlier experience. I'm sure you realize this, Madhav, in Hubli, where there was a Idgah Maidan, where the majority community wanted that there should be a flag hoisting, and at that time it was Mr. Devegowda who was the Chief Minister, and he had taken the initiative to make sure that the national flag was hoisted there, and it was done by the Muslim community itself. So I think from then on, from nearly I think 91 or 92 this happened, and now nearly 30 years later there's this kind of a development. So I think insofar as how the court views it, it will be very important to see how the court views this Idgah Maidan, so-called Idgah Maidan, and how it may decide that to foster a greater fraternity, brotherhood, and whether it's going to allow the Maidan to be used by others, or whether it is going to restrict its use. We'll have to see that.
All right, Swapnil Kothari with us. Swapnil Kothari, very interesting to see the kind of exchanges that have been taking place. Now Kapil Sibal, in fact, I'm going to read out this portion. In fact, let me quickly go across to Neelashish, because Neelashish, fresh exchange happening between the bar and the bench. To quickly take us through what Kapil Sibal's submissions were and what the response from the bench was. Neelashish.
Well, yes, Madhav, the Supreme Court has asked whether any other religious festival is conducted there, and whether they oppose any sort of festival tomorrow or otherwise as well. Kapil Sibal says that no religious function has been conducted on the land since 200 years. The 1964 judgment injunction is in our favor. This is Waqf property. In 1977 also injunction was granted in our favor. Once it is Waqf, it cannot be challenged. Order by the single judge is in our favor. In 2002 they got the Joint Commissioner's report and say that they want to perform Ganesh Chaturthi tomorrow. In the impugned order, the prayer is made. Court may be pleased to say to stay the order passed by the Joint Commissioner. Waqf Board cannot quash Joint Commissioner's order. Now Sibal has read the High Court's order, and also later on Justice Oka has asked whether any such festival was allowed to be held on the ground earlier. Kapil Sibal responds saying never has that been allowed. Now the court is asking what has been permitted is only Ramzan and Bakri Eid festival. Your apprehension is for the direction of the bench. Your apprehension is what is your apprehension regarding is what the Supreme Court thereafter asks. Now what is being said is that the direction of the bench is to please permit all the festivals, or is it your grievance that it is only being used for one particular festival? Kapil Sibal basically says that no other religious festival should be allowed except what we are allowed to do, is what he is saying at this point. So that, right, Madhav, is the crux of the argument here. But the judge here questioning whether the grievance is only against the proposed festival for tomorrow or to be used thereafter as well. And Kapil Sibal says that it is regarding any other religious festival, and we are not okay with that.
All right, let me get in a quick word from Swapnil Kothari on that. Swapnil Kothari, very interesting to see that Kapil Sibal says that no other religious function has been conducted in the land since 200 years. He also says that the 64 judgment was in favor, the injunction in our favor from Justice Hidayatullah. He insists that this is Waqf property, something the Karnataka government has been challenging, saying that they do not have papers. The BBMP claims it is revenue land, and in a situation like this, Kapil Sibal says that once it is Waqf, it cannot be challenged. The order by the single judge is in our favor, and now there is a joint commissioner's report to say that they want to perform Ganesh Chaturthi. If the impugned order prayer is made, the court may be pleased to stay the order passed by the joint commissioner. He also says that no other festival has been held on the ground earlier. So very, very important set of arguments going there in the precedent of this entire case and what has happened legally speaking in terms of the ownership of the land itself.
Madhav, what's happening here is that to cite a 1964 judgment is, lying on some sort of a wooden straw that you have, or a plastic straw, should I say, to be more appropriate, and a wooden sword, because it's possibly, 58 years ago that this order was passed. So obviously that order is very, very little in today's climes, holds very little significance in today's climes. Now, obviously, you have Muslim festivities only twice a whole year. Secondly, if the revenue department shows that they are the ones who own the land, albeit if it's a Waqf land, then obviously the title becomes the issue. Once the revenue authority proves that they are the ones who own the land, then it becomes a land with open boundaries as agitated by the Solicitor General, Mr. Tushar Mehta. In that case, then the Supreme Court may very well be inclined to hold it in favor of hosting of Ganesh Chaturthi festivities. But my question is a little bit larger, Madhav. I don't want to see this happening because, first of all, this matter should not be reaching the Supreme Court. It should have been decided between two religious factions, face-to-face sitting with each other. Because once this reaches the Supreme Court, then a legality creeps in. Then obviously a larger bench comes in, judicial time, judicial resources, setting up precedents, opening up Pandora's box. If we as Muslims were forced to allow Hindus to do their festivities, then what stops the Hindus from allowing us also to do festivities on their land? Or what allows Sikhs to do the same thing, or Jains to do, or Parsis to do? So, this is going to get into some sort of a religious whirlpool, which I think very well can be avoided in a very tenuous democracy like ours, which, gets tenuous when it comes to religious issues.
Right.
So, Madhav, my point is, looking at Justice Lalit's very, vociferous chant yesterday that in his 74-day tenure he wants to reduce the judicial backlog of cases, then I think this is the one thing that he needs to really, really get out of the way and, shut it as fast as possible and say that, look, there are too many cases pending before us. This is the last thing that the Supreme Court was cut out for, which actually it wasn't cut out for. There is no question about it. Any lawyer who's read the Constitution will tell you, or knows about or tad about constitutional debates will tell you that this is not the Supreme Court what it was. That is why you see the judicial backlog. And this is not going to stop here, Madhav. There are going to be many more cases coming one after the other before the Supreme Court. As far as this kind of an issue is concerned, I mean, children playing cricket on a playground or having Republic Day and Independence Day festivities are different issues. Those are secular. Those don't have a religious tone to it at all. It is this particular issue which has a... I'm not saying that one side is wrong or one side is right. My point is that this issue can be resolved face to face. It need not go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could very well, in its wisdom, now that it is seized of this issue, it will have to decide it, but it could have very well said that, sorry, this can be, let's give it a chance to the two religious factions to sit opposite each other without us creeping into this matter.
All right. In fact, so Sadbal has continued to refer to the judgment in the suit that the graveyard existed way back in 1871 and the Idgah in 1938. In fact, children playing does not affect the possession of the land. Corporation cannot take advantage of the playing of children, and so possession is established, the graveyard established, Idgah is established. Sibal goes on to say that in between what happened was the Mysore State Waqf Board declared this as a Waqf land under Section 5.2 of the Waqf Act. Under Section 5.4, this has been given finality. Nobody's challenged this and this has become final. Neelashish, very important that Sibal is referring to what has transpired as far as the Mysore State Waqf Board is concerned, declaring this as a Waqf land. He says that is final, and since it has been done under the Waqf Act.
Madhav, Kapil Sibal stating that what happened was that the Mysore State Waqf Board declared this as a Waqf land, and that gave this finality. Beyond that, the fact that no one challenged it makes this issue final. He also went back to state that the graveyard existed in 1871, the Idgah in 1938, and the fact that children play on it does not affect the possession of the land, and the corporation cannot take advantage of the playing of children. He says that this way the possession is established, the graveyard and the Idgah, they're all established. This is again a throwback to the arguments that he was submitting before the two-judge bench as well, to say that these aspects are established, and once these are established, we are the ones who are allowed to do as we please with the land. If we draw a line on other religious festivals not being allowed, then that is our call. Of course, we will have to wait and watch what exactly the Supreme Court says about this. But Kapil Sibal goes on to say that the corporation never challenged it and challenged that it was a Waqf land, and they had accepted it. Then they still tried to interfere, and a suit was filed for a permanent injunction. Their argument is that in the revenue record, it is mentioned as the corporation land. So, of course, arguments with regard to the title continue, with Kapil Sibal saying that laying claim to the land and saying that thereafter we will do as we please with it.
Right, let me quickly get in Brajesh on that. Brajesh, two very important points that I want to get your views on. First is Sibal's argument that children playing on that land does not affect possession of the land. He is referring to the suit that the graveyard existed way back in 1871 and the Idgah in 1938. Also, of course, the argument that the Mysore Waqf Board had declared it a Waqf property, and therefore there is no dispute, or this is a final status, is Kapil Sibal's argument. Does that argument really hold water? And what is the precedent in such cases, particularly as far as Waqf properties are concerned?
A full act, it's a comprehensive act, and when a certain act is declared as a Waqf act, as a Waqf property, now the Waqf Board has the full control of that property, unless there is some challenge by either party, that is either from the state or from some other rightful owner, or so on and so forth. And I think the claim seems to be that insofar as this land is concerned, there has been no challenge from any side, unless it's only a matter of fact that the Bengaluru City Corporation, BBMP, has stated, and rather the revenue records show that this is BBMP property and not Waqf property. Apart from the fact that there is this detail, that is in regard to the what we call the kata, which seems to have been the name of the BBMP, it appears that the Waqf has declared this land as its own, and there has been no challenge. Now, insofar as children playing, and so far as people playing kites, people cycling, all this does not have a religious color, as rightly pointed out by my friend on your panel. And I think insofar as the fact that there is activity which can be conducted without, one religion claiming that look, this is this kind of a religion or this kind of a religion. Also, the fact that there also appears to be a graveyard there. We will have to finally await the Supreme Court's decision on this. And of course, parties are bound to make their own arguments. And
Absolutely. But before I go across to other panelists, one quick question to you, Brajesh, is that while the High Court now has given another judgment a short while earlier as far as the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations in the Hubli Idgah Maidan is concerned, do you think that there is any comparing the two cases? Are they similar in nature? Because on the face of it, the demand appears to be the same to celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi in the Idgah Maidan in both Bengaluru and in Hubli. But do the facts of the case really have any comparison? And do you potentially seeing that, are you seeing that order being challenged in the Supreme Court as well?
No, I think the timing is a little curious, Madhav, if you ask me, because there are parties who want to celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi and other festivals on these lands, but why at this time when there are elections some 6-7 months later? So this, I think, is a very curious factor, which I think will have some bearing on how elections are played out. And I think this is really essentially, whether one likes it or not, if these kind of issues come up before court, I think the courts also should be very conscious of this issue, that these are issues which are going to sway the electorate one way or another. I think that having said, besides this, I think the point is it's a question of legality, and the courts have to strictly look at the issue on a legal basis and decide either the ownership or the usage or the title, so on and so forth, on its own. But as far as I am concerned, and being a political animal, I rather tend to see that this is there is something political about all these suits which suddenly emerge. And as elections, as you know, whether in Hubballi or in Bengaluru.
All right, quick update coming in. Sorry to interrupt you there, Brajesh. There is a quick update coming in. Senior advocate Mukul Rohatgi has interrupted Kapil Sibal during the course of his argument. He says that it belongs to the state. The corporation is not the owner, it is the state. Sibal then responds, says as long as it is a Waqf, you can challenge it, but you cannot be the owner. Supreme Court has held it. So very interesting argument coming in there, Nilashish.
Well, yes, absolutely, Madhav. This is again with respect to what we were discussing earlier, wherein Kapil Sibal had said that the Mysore State Waqf Board had declared this as Waqf land. Thereafter, he was saying that there has been no challenge, therefore, it assumes finality as Waqf land. Thereafter, of course, as you pointed out, Senior Advocate Mukul Rohatgi said that it does not belong to a corporation as far as the 1964 judgment is concerned, but it belongs to the state. Given the fact that it was not challenged, says Kapil Sibal, this cannot be said to be a state land. He says that as long as it is a Waqf, you can challenge it, but you cannot be the owner, says Kapil Sibal, and they never challenged it at any stage. Kapil Sibal goes on to say that where there is a question of ownership, where is there a question of ownership and possession to be established when it is Waqf land? So he says there is no requirement to question ownership or possession because that is established because it is Waqf land. It was a question that had been raised by Senior Advocate Mukul Rohatgi that it actually belongs to the state, and again distinguishing from the 1964 judgment on which reliance is placed to say that it was stated in that judgment that this is not a land that belongs to the corporation. So that was stated by Solicitor General Tushar Mehta also on part of the Karnataka government to say that yes, it has been stated that this is not corporation land, therefore it has not been given to anyone either, and it does belong to the state government. And the argument revolves around this aspect of it being a Waqf land or not, basis the judgment of 1964. And Senior Advocate Mukul Rohatgi saying that in that situation it will be a land of the state.
Right. Let me bring Swapnil Kothari on that. Swapnil Kothari, whether the land belongs to the corporation, whether it belongs to the state, whether it's a revenue property or not, the fact is that the Karnataka High Court has considered this matter, and somewhere in the ambiguity of it, the Karnataka High Court appears to have, in my limited understanding of what the High Court has done a few days earlier, is that they have given the benefit of doubt to the state government and left it at their doorstep to decide who should be permitted to conduct a religious function on that land or not. So can we say, or is it right to assume that the Karnataka High Court at some level, at least at face value, appears to have taken the state government's version?
Well, yes, Madhav, your understanding is absolutely correct. That is what exactly it has done, and rightfully so. It has told that this is this is the domain of the executive. Don't try to bring the judiciary in. Don't try to pass the buck to us. Decide for yourself. If it's your land, if you own it as a state, then I think you should feel free to say that it's an open land without boundaries, and any religion can be allowed to do whatever they wish to do on that particular land. Even if for the past 60 years or 100 years, if there is a particular activity of a particular religion that has been taking place only twice a year, it doesn't matter. Children playing cricket has obviously got no effect on this. Independence Day, Republic Day celebrations have very little to do with this. Eventually, at the end of the day, if it's owned by the state, then that swings the entire case pretty much. Obviously the courts will have to abide by that. Article 25, yes, the court will look at the fundamental right aspect, but I think when you try to marry all these issues, a lot of it hinges upon the title, upon the ownership of that particular thing. Even if it's declared as a Waqf land, if it's not challenged, it's been there since 60 years, 70 years. Climes are different, times are different. A lot of things differ. Obviously, the views differ. You want to make it more secular, you want to establish it as a secular democracy, which I think the courts try to do off and on. then I think they will try to pretty much lean in favor of the fact that it's states who owns it and the states can decide it, much possibly to the dismay of the Waqf people or to the Muslim community. But
all right, some fresh arguments coming in there. Just a minute, Swapnil. Some fresh arguments coming in from Kapil Sibal. Let me quickly get in Nilashish on this. Nilashish, Kapil Sibal submitting before the court that the other organizations say it's Saffron Day for us on December 6th and we will bring this place to the ground. What's happening in 2022? Your lordships must put an end to this. So very strong appeal coming in from Kapil Sibal referring to the Saffron Day that has been announced by various organizations.
Well, yes, absolutely. Again, Kapil Sibal saying that Saffron Day is being announced by organizations, that an FIR was registered suo moto. He's questioning what exactly is happening in the country. That is his. That is what he is stating in court. Of course, last time during the previous bench, while the previous bench was hearing this, the court asked him to stick to the facts of this particular case. Kapil Sibal, in fact, goes on to state in this particular while presenting his arguments that for 200 years it is status quo. Heavens are not going to fall if status quo is granted, and in fact there is a suo moto FIR which I am really disturbed by. So he's talking about the FIR in terms of the Saffron Day as well. So Kapil Sibal has also stated that on the 6th of August, an order was passed by the Joint Commissioner after sending notice saying that there is no clarity as to title and had called for documents earlier. Thereafter, he says that the order of the Commissioner says that the said land is noted as playground in the corporation records and they are trying to reopen the whole thing. How does the Joint Commissioner have this kind of jurisdiction? So now Kapil Sibal also questioning the jurisdiction of the Joint Commissioner to pass an order as he did on the 6th of August. The arguments continue as far as Kapil Sibal is concerned. He, as you rightly pointed out, went on to ask the court what is happening in our country. This is 2022. Your lordships must put an end to it. Now again, Justice Sundaresh is saying that the FIR is against a named person. However, Kapil Sibal says, what is the atmosphere they're trying to talk about? We never argue on politics in court. This reeks of something. That is the fact of the matter. I need not say any more. Justice Oka goes on to state that it is whose statement on page 223. He's asking about a certain aspect of the petition that has been filed, and Kapil Sibal is informing him of the same. Now, senior advocate Dushyant Dave has commenced his argument saying that during the hearing before the division bench, the Solicitor General produced an order which in fact was not given to us, and that order stated that the state had given permission for Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations to take place tomorrow. Now that is the urgency in the matter. So Dushyant Dave saying that there is an order in place with regard to Ganesh Chaturthi being celebrated tomorrow at that particular ground, and that is the urgency of the matter. Again, explaining the importance and the urgency of this particular matter. Dushyant Dave also buttressing what Kapil Sibal said earlier as far as Waqf land is concerned, saying that the Waqf Act of 1995 overrides every other law. The state is denuded of any authorities to deal with Waqf property. That is a very significant argument coming in, Madhav, at this point, saying that the Waqf Act of 95...
Let me quickly get in the point from Brajesh Kalapa. Brajesh Kalapa, very, very strong arguments coming from Kapil Sibal, because he says that for 200 years it is status quo. Heavens are not going to fall if status quo is granted, and there is a suo moto FIR. I'm really disturbed by this, what's happening in our country. Your lordships must put a stop to this. And what is the urgency to this? The High Court the very next day, and what is the urgency for the High Court to say that ceremonies can be performed, to which Dushyant Dave has also submitted. The Waqf Act has overriding power over other laws, so no order can be passed. The law includes order. Very, very important arguments coming in there. Rajesh Kalapa.
So of course the Waqf Board is making a very strong pitch for the fact that there should be continuance of status quo, and also the fact that there should not be any religious activity other than that which has been practiced so far, as claimed by them for the last 200 years. And if that were the case, then certainly tomorrow Ganesh Chaturthi, which is a very important festival in Karnataka and in Maharashtra, will perhaps not be held if that were the argument were taken into account. But the very fact that the timing of the High Court and the fact that the matter has reached the Supreme Court, and this kind of racy kind of commentary which we are now hearing, I think is really a run-up to Ganesh Chaturthi tomorrow. Whether Ganesh Chaturthi will actually be held in the Idgah Maidan or not, and that of course is left to the Supreme Court of India. And if the court were to finally decide that if the Idgah Maidan were to be used by other communities to foster fraternity and other, so the ideals of the Constitution, then perhaps they will allow for the Maidan to be used by other communities as well. But and if this were the case, then I think this kind of a ruling will kind of have cumulative effect on every Idgah Maidan across the country. And so from that point of view, I think this is a very important legal development which is taking place in the Supreme Court today. And one has to watch it very, with great interest to see that, to see how the court is thinking and how ideas have evolved over a period in time, whether politics has trumped everything else, whether the issues other than politics have come. I think it's the very fact that this important argument is taking place today at this time, I think is extremely it's a commentary on how things are today.
In fact, stay with us. Let me once again go back to Mr. Swapnil Kothari for more on this. Mr. Kothari, how much of this actually boils down to who owns the land? And the Waqf Board, of course, has been saying that since there is this 1964 precedent on the part of the Supreme Court that ruled in the Waqf's favor, that the land belongs to them and that there is absolutely no judicial endorsement yet of the state's claim to that piece of land, and therefore what was in fact held in 1964 should still apply in the Supreme Court's deliberations. How much weight do you think that specific argument carries?
Well, that argument about ownership, yes, that may carry a little bit of a weight, but I think to quote a 64 judgment in 2022 and say that nothing has transpired in between, nothing has changed, the times haven't changed, people haven't evolved, is to be frozen in time. Now, we lawyers have this very bad habit of using precedents, even if it's a very weak one, and if it goes in our favor, and we all do that all the time. So I will not blame any advocate who holds the brief for any of the parties either way. But the point is that when you look at it comprehensively and holistically, if it's the secular democracy that we are looking for, if it's Article 25 subject to reasonable restrictions, one of which is public order, and overall perspective on which Maidan should be used for what over a period of time, then I think the Supreme Court will, after this order, pave the way for a lot many other Maidans or a lot many other grounds, which can be used for religious purposes either ways. Even if it's a Hindu ground, it can be used for Muslim purposes or Parsi purposes, or even if it's a Parsi ground or something of that nature, which can be used for other religious. So what the Supreme Court will try to do then, in this, after it passes a judgment, it should be prepared mentally for more petitions, for more such applications from more diverse religious factions, and it should be prepared for more investment of more judicial time and resources.
Right.
Because ultimately this is something which should have been resolved by two factions across the table and should not have reached the court, because then the court will have to look at it from the legal perspective, which is the title perspective, which
Absolutely.
is the Waqf law, which is the Waqf property, which is the constitution of the Waqf. So all of these arguments then tend to be extremely legal, which then eventually open up a Pandora's box across the country, especially in a democracy which is so much governed by not only politics, but religion and politics make a very, very potent venom.
Right.
Let me tell you that. And that is extremely harmful and poisonous for the entire democracy as a whole. So the Supreme Court will have to do its job, whatever it is. It has to do it. But then, we are really opening up a Pandora's box for more, or should I say, in legal terms, floodgates for more litigation.
Absolutely. In fact, let me once again go across to Nilashish, who's monitoring all the updates from the Supreme Court. Nilashish, there have been some more developments by way of observations as well as questions asked to each of the protesting parties there, and there's been an exchange between Justice Oka as well as Mr. Mukul Rohatgi. So if you could just take our viewers through that as well.
Well, yes, Siddharth, Senior Advocate Mukul Rohatgi now is appearing for the state of Karnataka, and Justice Oka has asked him whether at any point in time before, any year before, has the state or the BBMP allowed festivities to be to take place on that land. Mukul Rohatgi has said no. However, very interestingly, what Mukul Rohatgi on behalf of the state says is that even if it was not used in the past, it cannot be an argument to say that it cannot be used right now. Of course, he was answering a question by the bench wherein it was said that if you see the order of the single judge, even the single judge has granted liberty to apply for modification. Instead of doing that, you came in for appeal. But as far as Mukul Rohatgi is concerned, for the state of Karnataka, they are saying that that argument that at any time prior this land was not used for any religious festivities does not exclude them from doing it now. It is not an argument that can be raised, is what the state says. The interim order was passed by a single judge, was based on the Revenue Authority, says Mukul Rohatgi, and he also says that 15 years ago, when similar issues arose, an informal committee was formed, including the Minister of Waqf, and members agreed to allow use of ground for Dashera and other festivals, including Shivratri, and this decision was taken 15 years ago. Dushyant Dave, of course, appearing for the Idgah, also said that as far as the judge's order is concerned, there was a decree that was passed which permanently restrained the corporation from entering the property, and that was confirmed by the court. And what is surprising is that the corporation thereafter, which has been permanently injuncted, asks us, as in the Waqf, to show title to the particular property. Now, Dushyant Dave goes on to say, then after the single judge had protected us, the government filed an appeal and questions how the government can actually come into this particular issue, because it was to do with the corporation and the Waqf. Now, Dushyant Dave talks about religious freedom under the constitution to say that it is necessary to not give an impression to religious minorities that their rights can be trampled upon like this. Of course, arguments now being submitted by senior advocate Mukul Rohatgi on part of the wherein he is saying that even if there were no celebrations or festivities allowed on that land before, that they hadn't taken place before, that does not mean that it cannot in the future or now. Also, Siddharth, Justice Oka asking about whether this decision was only by political parties. Mukul Rohatgi says one of the petitioners before this court was a part of the meeting. For the past 200 years, says Rohatgi, the land was used as a playground for children, and all revenue entries are in the name of the state, again laying claim to the land, the state of Karnataka.
Absolutely, but just one point of clarification there, Nilashish. So is there a clear contradiction between what Mr. Sibal, who's representing the Waqf in this particular case, is arguing versus what Mr. Rohatgi has said? Because Mr. Sibal has said that in the past, the land has not been used for any other religious festivals with the exception of Ramzan as well as Bakrid. But Mr. Rohatgi is pointing out towards a certain precedent that was adopted 15 years ago when an informal committee was formed wherein a decision was taken to also allow Hindu festivities to proceed at the concerned venue. So clearly a factual disagreement there between Mr. Sibal and Mr. Rohatgi.
Well, yes, absolutely, Siddharth. Mr. Rohatgi, of course, saying that there was an informal committee that was constituted, and there were a number of people who were a part of it, including one of the petitioners before this particular court, of course referring to the Waqf Board in Karnataka. But the question that arises is with regard to this specific property, and that is why Justice Oka is saying that the decision of this informal committee was only by political parties. So to distinguish between the current situation and what happened 15 years ago is what the court is trying to figure out, whether this applies to this particular situation as far as land rights are concerned when the Waqf Board says that it is a Waqf land.
Right. So Justice Oka saying, see, for 200 years this land was not used for the celebration, and Justice Oka asks, was it at any point in time used for any other purpose? Dushyant Dave then says this is nothing but unlawful encroachment, rights of minorities are being trampled upon, and Mr. Rohatgi, then representing the state of Karnataka, actually gets into some of the specifics. He says the Revenue Authority order was the basis of the single judge order. He says 15 years ago when such a dispute arose, all parties, Deputy Commissioner and Minister was also present. They agreed to allow the land to be used for Dashera and Ganesh Chaturthi. For the last 200 years, this land is being used as a playground for children, and all revenue entries are in the name of the state. So, Mr. Kalapa, coming to you, two contentions being put forth by Mr. Rohatgi. One is that this land belongs to the state, and secondly, contradicting Kapil Sibal, he says that 15 years ago there was another precedent that was set wherein an informal committee was formed which agreed to also allow the celebration of Hindu religious festivals such as Dashera as well as Ganesh Chaturthi. So does this therefore tilt the argument in favor of the state, which has been empowered by the Karnataka High Court in its previous order to allow cultural festivities of that nature to go ahead on the 31st?
No, Siddharth, I don't know. I think essentially it's a question of whom does the land first belong to. And if the court comes to a conclusion that the land belongs to either the Waqf Board or to the state, only then can they proceed on a different basis. Now, if the Waqf Board has made a claim and stated that this is Waqf land, and if there is no challenge to that, then it finally becomes final unless there is some challenge to it, and that challenge ought to have been in a civil court, right? Or it ought to have been in the jurisdictional court. Now I don't know if the state has challenged that. I think essentially everything will begin from the fact that this the ownership of the land is finally in question, and until that ownership is decided one way or another, I don't think these issues can be at large, but of course it is for the Supreme Court to finally decide. Right. Now, if there are certain concessions made by the landowner and said that this kind of activity can be permitted and this kind of activity can be permitted, now it is, unless the ownership is established, it's difficult for the court to say, okay, we are now doing away with this kind of ownership and we are saying that this kind of activity can be permitted. In my view, I think it's difficult for the court to take such a view unless the title is finally first established. And that, I think, is the most important thing in this matter. And I honestly don't know. I have not seen the judgment of the High Court. I don't know if that fact has been taken into consideration by the High Court. In fact, the judgment of the High Court, the order of the High Court that was delivered on the 26th of August said that the ownership appears to be in dispute. Now, taking this to Mr. Kothari, is the Supreme Court here in a bit of a difficult position because this bench was constituted in a matter of about 15 to 20 minutes, and if the basis for any order that it gives out is to first establish the ownership of the land, does it really have the time at its disposal to do that within a short span of time, given that the 31st is in fact upon us? It's just a matter of a few hours now, and therefore a decision needs to be taken as to whether or not this Ganesh Chaturthi celebration can in fact be allowed to go ahead. So if at all there is an interim order that is issued by the court, what can it actually do given the limited time it has to decide the issue?
Well, I don't think that the interim order can be that Ganesh Chaturthi celebration should be allowed. If it has to be, it has to be as forming part of a final order. Now, the Supreme Court is well equipped, and more often than not, in its past history of 72 years now, I think it has given many such judgments, and it has done so within a very short period of time. And it has to do so even today on the basis of the evidence that has been proffered before it. So if the evidence is there, then obviously, it has to go by that. It has to weigh the evidence. And even if it's just upon the ownership of the land, I don't think it will rest only upon the ownership of the land. Okay. It will have to look at a lot of other considerations as well. Whether to, first of all, the Article 25, yes, which is a fundamental right. Secondly, subject to reasonable restrictions, which is public order, law and morality. Yes. Whether there are going to be riots taking place, whether the third thing is that public disorder will be there in terms of many litigations before the Supreme Court, which again will result in too much of judicial resources and judicial time. So it cannot just depend upon one particular aspect. It has to look at 3-4 other things, and then eventually it has to come to a conclusion that as to what sort of decision it has to take and whether or not it is going to have more legal ramifications. And rather than state ramifications in terms of law and order, it has to look at more legal ramifications. The state ramifications is the burden of the state, because law and order is a state subject to contain riots and to have this kind of posse of police forces which is there, and CRPF forces, whatever are there surrounding the precincts of this particular Maidaan. It's very clear that the state is well prepared for any untoward incident. But that should not stop the court from taking a decision one way or the other. But in my opinion, this is a decision which is going to be a landmark decision. Okay. Whether it comes today, whether it hopefully I'm sure it will come today itself, so as to put a quietus on this matter, and it will really pave the way for future generations to come in terms of whether or not eventually both the factions or religious disparity will eventually have to give way to secularism, and to say that, look, there has to be fraternal brotherhood, and it's no point going to courts one way or the other, because this is all going to result into further and further separatism, which the politicians are very well used to exploiting, and this itself is a political upheaval as well. In my opinion, this is more politics. This row has been raised because of politics more than anything else. Nobody is really interested in the legalese of ownership, title, who can get to play, whether children can play cricket, whether Independence Day, Republic Day, whether there has to be Ganesh Chaturthi, whether there will be Dashera, sure. All of those things, and especially that argument which was there 15 years ago, that the joint meeting came to a conclusion that religious activities should be allowed of all nature. Then I think that sort of a compromise or sort of an arrangement, a mutual arrangement, will definitely have a tremendous amount of weightage in the decision of the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you say that, Mr. Kothari, because Mr. Rohatgi emphasized the use of the word informal. So it was a compromise, like you said, wherein a decision was taken to also allow Rajyotsava celebrations as well as Ganesh Chaturthi and Dashera, among other Hindu festivals. Let me also take this across to Mr. S.S. Ram, who's joining us on the broadcast for his inputs. Mr. Ram, what do you think would be the implications of a judgment that is not categorical in nature and leaves a fair amount of the matter in limbo, given the limited time at hand before the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations commence tomorrow?
Good evening. First of all, it's quite surprising that successive governments all these years haven't bothered to look into this matter seriously, considering the sensitivity of nature of such properties in a prime area which is being used by one particular religion. That's quite surprising. And we can't go by assumptions, we can't go by precedents, we can't go by it was considered to be XYZ. I'm sure there should be a proper ownership to the title, be it XYZ or the state, and if so, it has to be for everyone to use it for the purpose that is possible for them, more in a harmonious way. I'm sure the Supreme Court, at least now, let it put an order which gives a proper solution to this problem. For the years to come, rather than allowing it to be in limbo even at this point in time. So that would be my expectation, please.
Absolutely. Let me go across to Nilashish once again. Nilashish, more correspondence between Justice Oka as well as Mr. Rohatgi. More questions being asked by the judge to Mr. Rohatgi, who's representing the state. Mr. Rohatgi has been saying that this land does not belong to the Waqf nor the BBMP. It belongs to the state government. If you could just give our viewers a perspective of that exchange between the judge and Mr. Rohatgi.
Absolutely, Siddharth. Just to put this in perspective, initially, let's not forget, Mukul Rohatgi had said that an informal committee, which basically is a quasi-judicial body, had a meeting on similar issues, and they had agreed to allow the use of the land for Dashera and other religious festivals. Now, Mukul Rohatgi goes on to say that in this situation, when the Joint Commissioner makes a finding that it belongs to the government, unless this order is set aside, the finding of the quasi-judicial body will stand, and that is something that he goes on to equate as far as the High Court order is concerned, where he says, why did the single judge thereafter only grant 2 days use. He says that the single judge allowed state to celebrate Independence Day and Republic Day. Why is this allowed? If I am the owner, I would not allow it. This is not consistent with exclusive ownership or title. Now Justice Oka is questioning Mukul Rohatgi as far as injunction, the decree of injunction is concerned, and he says, isn't there a decree of injunction in operation? Mukul Rohatgi says that the injunction is against them not to build a school. However, Justice Oka goes on to show that it says that the BBMP is permanently injuncted and they cannot enter the property and build. If they can't even enter the land, how can they allow the celebration of a festival? What Mukul Rohatgi is saying beyond this is that it is the state that is before the court right now. They are not saying that it is the corporation. So the injunction on the corporation is irrelevant in a way, is what Mukul Rohatgi is saying at this point. So in response to the injunction question, Mukul Rohatgi says that here it's the state and not the corporation. But Justice Oka is asking that when there is an injunction against the corporation from entering, can they be allowed to organize a function or a festival of this nature? Of course, the matter continues with Mukul Rohatgi arguing that at the end of the day, if you look at the Supreme Court judgment from 1964, it is unclear as to who the owner is. So if nobody is the owner, the state is the owner is the argument. Mukul Rohatgi goes on to say that evidence on behalf of the corporation shows that there are footpaths across the land. Supreme Court says children play in the ground, which won't create title for BBMP. That is fair enough, but it can't create a title in the favor of Waqf either. So the argument again revolves around the fact that when there is no owner, the state is the owner. The 1964 judgment, Mukul Rohatgi says, is not clear about title. It says that it cannot be, the Supreme Court judgment says that it cannot be said that the land belongs to the corporation. Mukul Rohatgi says so be it, but it does not say it belongs to the Waqf either. So when there is no ownership of the land, it belongs to the state. An injunction is against BBMP. Here the state is saying that we own the land and therefore we can pass orders, appropriate orders with regard to the celebration of Ganesh Utsav tomorrow.
Right, Mr. Kalapa, let me in fact throw that at you, because in 1964, according to the Waqf, and the Waqf believes that the judgment was categorical enough in allotting that piece of land or acknowledging the fact that the land is owned by the Waqf Board. Now, Mr. Rohatgi, representing the state of Karnataka, says that the judgment was ambiguous. So clearly, there is a difference here in the interpretation of the 1964 judgment by the Waqf Board as well as the state of Karnataka. That's point number one. But does the Revenue Department's decision of the state government to arrogate itself the ownership to the title of the land, does that carry more weightage in the deliberations of the court than the precedent that was set way back in 1964 when the Waqf believes the court ruled in its favor?
If the Supreme Court has passed an order in 1964, and from my reading of Article 142 of the Constitution, that the judgment of the Supreme Court is the law of the land, then that judgment cannot be varied by anybody other than the Supreme Court itself. Now, if the Supreme Court has passed an order in 1964, that order holds good for all times to come unless the court itself were to vary its order. And now, if the time has come and the court believes that it can actually vary its order, then it's most welcome to change its order. But insofar as the 1964 decision is concerned, as on today, without varying the order, that is the law of the land. Now, if insofar as the fact that the court has held a particular way in 1964, that automatically cannot, change over with the passage of time. That has to be changed only by the will of the Supreme Court, and the court alone has that power. Now, if the arguments of either party are accepted by the court, then certainly it can't vary that order of 1964. But I think enough grounds or reasons have to be mentioned by the court itself as to why the 1964 order is not good, or so on and so forth. But I'm very, it's a very curious kind of development that Justice Oka is taking a lot of interest in this, because he doesn't happen to be from Karnataka, but he was the Chief Justice of Karnataka, and perhaps he has had occasion to deal with issues similar to this or this itself. And perhaps that's the reason he's asking a lot of questions. And this was a matter of curiosity.
Absolutely. And Mr. Kothari, this does boil down to what exactly can be defined as status quo at the present moment. Now, the Waqf Board believes that status quo is that the land belongs to the Waqf. Mr. Rohatgi says that since the Revenue Department issued a circular notifying the land as government land, the status quo has changed. And therefore, the current status quo, as per Mr. Rohatgi, is that the state is the owner. And that's precisely why Justice Oka is asking so many questions of the representative of the state in the court, which is Mr. Rohatgi, about why he is justifying this piece of land as belonging to the state government.
Well, yes, Mr. Oka used to be the Chief Justice of the Karnataka High Court, and that's the reason why Chief Justice Lalit must have taken him as one of the judges today to decide this particular matter. So I'm not surprised that Mr. Oka is taking a keen interest, because I'm sure he's well aware of all the happenings that take place in Karnataka, or did take place when he was the Chief Justice at that time. Now, to ask these questions of Mr. Rohatgi is obviously giving me an indication over a period of time that I've been hearing, about this matter, and the way the course of the arguments that have taken place in the past 1 hour is that the Supreme Court is more inclined to make this as an open land without boundaries, so as to allow religious activities of any nature. So I see it going that way from what I'm looking at the questions, because the court doesn't seem to be hinged by the fact that this is a Waqf land, in as much as it is hinged by the fact that there was some sort of a oral sort of a compromise that took place, and that when there is no particular ownership specified, then obviously it is the state that owns it, and once the state owns it, then it becomes an open land without boundaries, and the state has the full power within itself as the executive to take place, to allow any activities of any nature that it deems fit, subject to law and order and public order and morality.
Right. So Nilesh, coming back to you once again. In fact, Mr. Rohatgi has made more submissions now before the court, where Kapil Sibal had earlier said that this land also has a part of it that's actually a kabristan or a burial ground. And Mr. Rohatgi has said that exclusive possession means nobody can walk through this. This is different. He's also said that nobody can be an exclusive owner of a burial ground in this country. What exactly is he trying to say when he's rebutting Mr. Kapil Sibal there?
Well, absolutely, Siddharth, Mukul Rohatgi talking about exclusive possession and in fact countering the claims of the Waqf Board, saying that exclusive possession means that nobody can walk through, that there can't be, that no one can be an owner of a burial ground in this country. The basic point that he's making at the end of the day is what is the current position of that particular ground. He says it is an open ground. They are allowed 2 days prayer in that ground. There is a municipal tank. There are footpaths. Children are playing around the year. How is this exclusive possession? Now, when it comes to exclusive possession, he says that it means that nobody can walk through. This, of course, is different, is what he says. He goes on to state that there was an argument with regard to the Waqf Act, also Waqf Act of 1995, and he says that has no application in this case. It is a previous act that is in play as far as this particular case is concerned. But his basic argument is, when there is a footpath, when there's a municipal tank, when there's a playground, there's a burial ground by their own admission, and no one doubts that, no one disputes that. In that situation, how can you say you have exclusive possession? Because that is not the clear definition of exclusive possession. That is the essential argument that is being made to counter the claims of the Waqf Board by Mukul Rohatgi on part of the state of Karnataka. Siddharth.
Right, and Mr. Shriram, coming to you, what do you believe now is the scope for any kind of a compromise in the build-up to tomorrow? Because informal committees have been set up in the past, that's something that Mr. Rohatgi pointed out towards, but do you see any scope for a compromise given the extremely rigid positions that both parties have taken in this particular matter?
Oh, given the impression that always the other religions are more secular than the Hindus, I think they must show some magnanimity now and ensure that the Ganesh festival happens tomorrow, and then come to a final firm conclusion as to who it belongs to, and thereafter one can look into what is going to happen. Because we always talk about secularism, we always talk about brotherhood. Why can't a Ganesh festival happen there, even presuming for a fact for a minute that let's assume that it probably belongs to one particular section. After all, it's an open ground and it's for the interest of a larger community. Why can't they be allowed to celebrate? And let's put this question to a firm finale, maybe in the days to come ahead. That would be my view, please.
Right. In fact, more interesting submissions, Mr. Sriram, and it's taking off from what you just said. In fact, Mr. Rohatgi is also echoing you in a way in the court. And Mr. Rohatgi says, what has the High Court done? Every part of this country, you have festivals, he says. In Bengal, you have the Durga Puja. In Maharashtra, roads are closed. One should be broad-minded. What is going to happen if Ganesh Chaturthi is allowed for 2 days? That's the argument that you also made. Nilashish, in fact, coming back to you, more exchanges now between Mr. Rohatgi and now Mr. Dushyant Dave also presenting his arguments. Mr. Rohatgi says, can someone say no because it's a Hindu festival? And Mr. Dave responds by saying, I wonder if any temple in this country, minority community will be allowed for prayers. So this is now going into the domain, Nilashish, of who owns that property, and however broad-minded one person might be, whether or not, if it's a certain religious place of worship, can the culture and the heritage and the practices of another religion be practiced within those premises? That's the dispute now between Mr. Rohatgi and Mr. Dave.
Well, absolutely heated discussions and arguments taking place in the Supreme Court at this point. Mukul Rohatgi says that one must be broad-minded and says what really will go wrong if you allow celebration of Ganesh Chaturthi at that ground for a day or two. Now, he also says that can someone say no if it's a Hindu festival, given the fact that it is government land? Now, he's going on the pretext that he has proven and established that the land belongs to the state. Now, Dushyant Dave says the question I ask is whether in a temple a Muslim person will be allowed to go in for prayer. So, of course, a clear deviation from the legal arguments here getting heated in Supreme Court. The court also asking the councils to cool down a little bit. The court has been discussing amongst themselves as of now, but Mukul Rohatgi says that the 2-acre land is not a mosque. That is the difference between a temple and this particular ground. Kapil Sibal also says we all know it is an Idgah and it is not a mosque, but the point is it is an Idgah and we claim ownership of that land. So of course at this point in time the judges are discussing amongst themselves. It did get a little heated in court and the judges have asked the councils to calm down given the time at this point. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta has also intervened at this point, saying that the entire premise of this submission is that what is the value of the register and what is the value of the entry. He's again talking about being allowed, the order that passed the land as Waqf land. So he's talking about the entire premise being based on that. Of course, the questions that were being addressed by the two councils for both sides, Mukul Rohatgi and Dushyant Dave and Kapil Sibal on the other side, was about the ownership. But Mukul Rohatgi
right,
did say
the judges are also having a discussion among themselves. We'll of course wait and see how long these deliberations continue. We request our guests to stay with us and we'll come back with more updates on the other side of this very short break. Stay tuned.
Welcome to this Times Now special broadcast. In today's episode of Inside Karnataka, we discuss about the upcoming BBMP election. What do these polls mean for the citizens of Silicon City? What's at stake for the political parties? We give you all these details and much more in the next half an hour of this special broadcast.
Bengaluru, the capital city of Karnataka, has a robust culture of civic activism. It's also an IT hub and in many ways a symbol of the vast strides India has made in the last few decades in the field of technology. It's a cosmopolitan city attracting talent from all parts of the country, a huge recipient to foreign investment, and a place that also stands out for its pleasant weather and greenery. But there are serious questions to be asked of the city's civic governance. Is Bengaluru's infrastructure really commensurate with its status as an international city? What of those tasked with the responsibility of ensuring an efficient municipal administration? Why is it that Bengaluru continues to be afflicted by serious civic apathy, not on the part of its citizens, but its administrators?
When it comes to the BBMP elections, and of course with the elections around the corner, we definitely have to talk about politics, and we have. But what are the core issues that plague the BBMP? What are the problems that the Bangaloreans really want addressed? To talk more about this, I have two prominent Bengalurians here with me. Srinivas, who's a very prominent civic activist from Bengaluru with Janagra at the moment. Also Ian Faria, life coach, and also a very popular face in the city. Thank you to both of you all for joining us on this special broadcast. Firstly to you, Srinivas, what are the biggest issues that plague the BBMP and Bengaluru?
Deepak, the depends on who you ask. Bengaluru now has 1.4 crore population. Our own Janagra survey shows that water, for example, is a big issue for the poor, whereas water is not at all issue for the rich. Footpaths are a common issue across rich, poor, men, women, age group, younger, older people. Traffic, everyone thinks traffic is a big problem, but only for the rich people. Not so much for the lower middle class and the poor people. Traffic doesn't feature as a big issue. The development of Bengaluru has become unequal. We found out that 97% of people know the name of the Prime Minister. 89% could name the Chief Minister. Not even 13% could name the last mayor of Bengaluru. So that reflects the overall understanding citizens have about city governance itself, the third tier of governance. So their lack of understanding that such a thing exists translate into lack of participation in the elections itself. So if we create more awareness that BBMP is not some agency that does some work, but we actually have an elected representative there.
So has brand Bengaluru been affected? While we have these sort of fancy roads coming up and all of that, but the traffic is a perennial problem. Potholes is still leading to loss of lives.
I think Bangalore is definitely affected, and in a major way. And what I find is, see, unless we choose good leaders,
Tuning into Times Now, I'm Kritsween Valia, and we get you non-stop coverage of what's happening in the top court. Viewers, all eyes this evening on the Supreme Court as it's hearing pleas challenging the Karnataka High Court order permitting the use of Idgah Maidan in Bengaluru for Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations. Now, back-to-back breaking news coming in as Times Now keeps you ahead with all the arguments that are being put out by several sides. And on your screens is the big development that has taken place with regards to Mukul Rohatgi's observations, his arguments. He says one has to be broad-minded. What will happen if such a celebration takes place for a day? To which Dushyant Dave says, I wonder if any temple, a person of minority community is allowed. So those are the kind of arguments that are currently underway. But yes, that's the big message that is being sent out in form of an argument by Mukul Rohatgi, who says one has to be broad-minded. Now, Nilashish continues to stay on with us. Nilashish, these are hectic arguments that are currently underway. It's been almost an hour and a half till we saw the 3-judge bench take up the issue. Almost 6 now. What are we hearing from the top court? Back-to-back arguments being presented, and all sides sticking to their argument, maintaining on one hand the Waqf Board saying that the 1964 Supreme Court judgment is something that must be held in its entirety and followed, and status quo must be maintained. On the other hand, you have the likes of Mukul Rohatgi who are coming out and saying that one cannot rely on a judgment that dates back to 1964. One has to be broad-minded.
Well, yes, Kritsween, as far as Mukul Rohatgi is concerned, he's appearing for the state of Karnataka, and he says primarily his argument is that the possession is not exclusive as far as the Waqf Board is concerned. He says that exclusive possession means that no one can walk through, but in this situation there are municipal tanks, there are footpaths, children play here. Of course, there is admittedly a dargah, a Kabristan as well, and in this situation no one in our country can have exclusive possession of a Qabristan, or this is not the meaning of exclusive possession. Thereafter, he goes on to say, in that situation, the land belongs to the state, and what really will happen if 1 or 2 days of festivities in terms of Ganesh Chaturthi are allowed. He goes on to say that in Kolkata, in West Bengal, you can see in playgrounds, there's Durga Puja all over the place, in every ground. As far as Gujarat is concerned, every road is having Dandiya and Garba. In Delhi, Ravan effigies are burned. Does anyone say anything? And he questions the broad-mindedness of the same. Dushyant Dave, of course, responded to that, saying that I wonder whether in a temple, a person of a minority community will be allowed to go and offer prayers. Mukul Rohgi also continues to say that in this situation, we are not talking about a mosque. The entire 2-acre plot of the ground that is in question is not a mosque. However, now while this engagement got heated, the Supreme Court stepped in. They asked the councils to calm down. They discussed amongst themselves, and now Solicitor General Tushar Mehta is also making certain arguments and distinguishing the arguments that have been made from his stand, and he's reading out from the High Court judgment, and then he goes on to say that the provision makes it conclusive only between Waqf, Mutawali and the person interested in the property. The state is not bound in any manner. The revenue officer said that this land continued to be of the ownership of the state government from time immemorial. Now Justice Indra Banerjee is asking a question in terms of clarification. Once you say it is between Waqf land, Mutawali and a person in interested property, today as a state, how do you contend the same? The Solicitor General Tushar Mehta goes on to say that it is conclusive between them, not between strangers. So what Tushar Mehta is trying to say is that the state at this point is not bound, that the state has authority as far as going ahead and passing orders is concerned, defending the judgment of the division bench of the High Court.
Okay, all right. So that's the arguments that are being presented by the Solicitor General. Quickly opening this up with our guest joining us this evening, we have Mohan Krishna, spokesperson, Karnataka BJP. We also have S.S. Sriram, who's a political analyst with us. Also with us is Deshratan Nigam. We have Shahid Ali and Tausif Ahmed on this broadcast. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking out your time. An all-important story, and any minute now we can hear something concrete coming from the 3-judge bench. Now, from the 2-judge bench, the matter was referred to a 3-judge bench, given the difference of opinion amongst the 2 judges who were earlier hearing the case out. If I could begin with you, Tausif Ahmed, you know, now Mukul Rohatgi says 15 years ago when similar issues arose, an informal committee was formed including the Minister of Waqf, and kindly see, members agreed to allow use of ground for Dussehra, for Shivratri. So why this decision that was taken 15 years ago cannot be repeated or revised once again? He goes on to say that perhaps it's time for us to be a little more broad-minded, perhaps it's time for us to stop thinking about what happened in 1964. It's a ground that must be used by all, for all religious purposes and cultural events.
You see, it is one thing for any party to come before a landowner to say to him that you are the landowner and I seek your permission to hold a certain things, to do a certain activity, and if that permission is not granted, then that's a question of debate. But it is another thing to come and say that, oh no, you are not the owner at all, to dispute the very fact that from the last 200 years this was a Idgah land and continues to be the Idgah land. No other religious activities were taken other than Idgah, other than Muslim religious activities. No, it continues to be the Qabristan. Today what is happening is this commissioner in 2022 has passed a notice and challenging the entire factual aspect that this land does not belong to you at all. This land belongs to state and we will do whatever we want. And that is challenging the entire judiciary and entire justice system. Okay. If you want to challenge the justice system, if you want to devoid Muslim bodies of the land that they hold, or if you want to devoid the Waqf Board of the land that they have listed as Waqf property and which continues to be used as Waqf property from last 200, you have to pass a law in the parliament. You have to abolish the Waqf Act and you have to declare that the land belonging to Muslims shall no more belong to them if it is a Waqf property. You have to pass the law.
Since it has not been used by anyone else but the Waqf for the last 200 years, then status quo must be maintained, and that's what is being argued by Kapil Sibal also since the beginning of this very case. The moment the Supreme Court took it up, he went on to cite the 1964 judgment and went on to say that since this has been used by the Waqf Board for the last 200 years, why make any sort of changes now? Deshratan Nigam, sir, if you could just come in and explain to us as to what do you really feel, because up until now what's also happened amidst all of this, the last couple of months we've seen the state come out, the BBMP come out and demand certain documents from the Waqf Board, say support it with documents, and perhaps then it will be taken into consideration the way the Waqf Board wants it to be taken, but none of that has happened either.
Yes, absolutely. When you ask for documents, to kaagaz nahi dikhayenge. That's the standard thing. However, whatever is going on Supreme Court is something which the root of the problem has to be addressed to. The root of the problem is, since the Mughal times, if there is a property which has been vested, it cannot be, considered so as under the Constitution. It has to be considered under the Constitution, and Waqf Act is under challenge in Supreme Court, and probably some kind of a decision will come out. Yes, one of the properties of Hooghly has been claimed by a municipal corporation, and the other one is by the Revenue Department. And let me tell you, the property tax is collected by the state governments so far as Waqf land is concerned. The properties built on these lands, the property tax is taken by the various state governments. So that's another issue which comes into the picture. How can any property tax go to the state government when there is a Waqf Act? So there is exceptions carved out already under the law. So various issues are there, and these issues have to be decided because Waqf is sitting under huge amount of government land. These are government lands. Somebody gave it to you, the Mughals gave it to you, the kings gave it to you, will not suffice into modern times. And that obviously an act which was passed surreptitiously, and that act is under challenge, and I believe all these questions will go into that. And there is a very clear communal angle and political angle is being given. Earlier, what was being done was, since the elections is there in Karnataka, therefore this is happening. You recall Mr. Kapil Sibal had raised exactly the same point in Ram Mandir case for its postponement. So the communal angle is also
Mr. Deshratan Nigam, while you're talking about the communal angle and perhaps how it's associated to the upcoming Karnataka elections, there's a quick update coming in. The Solicitor General says in the absence of any claim for title and when there is a revenue authority record showing it is with the government, the division bench committed no wrong. The division bench judgment is something that is being questioned by the Waqf Board. So you have the Solicitor General stepping in and defending the judgment by the Karnataka High Court, the division bench. Goes on to say, and this is important, now I have a suggestion to balance the equities. Please allow us to permit a government managed temple to hold Ganesh festival only for tomorrow and day after with the responsibility of the government without putting any permanent structure, and we will take care of law and order. So this is important because now the Solicitor General has come out and said that we will vacate it later, to which Dushyant Dave says such an assurance was given in the Babri Masjid case as well. This undertaking was violated. Shahid Ali, if I could come to you, what is the problem then? If it's just about 2 to 3 days and a festival that is celebrated across the country, an attempt is being made to host that festival on a playground that the Waqf Board claims is rightfully theirs, but it's just a matter of 2 to 3 days.
I am really unable to understand why all times Pandara box are being opened every day at different places in the name of different things. See, this is a mosque or this is a Idgah where the Namaaz is performed, and there are two distinct religions. One is Hinduism, one is Islam. Hinduism always advocates for diet and worship of gods and goddesses, but Islam believes in oneness of God. So this distinction has to be understood. a property which is being used for performing namaz for last 200 years, and of course for playing, for playing by children. As far as the public purpose is concerned, as far as the public utility is concerned, that is different than the religious utility. So these things, two things cannot be equated with each other. This has to be understood. Now, why you have been asking for Idgah all of a sudden after 200 years? Why this time only?
How does
this
justify
is a question of great importance.
oneness,
Now everything, everywhere the politics is...
Firstly, let's not, individually try and pick on different religions. That's not what we're here to do. We're just trying to break down details of what's happening in the top court.
That is the belief. That is the belief.
All right. Anyway, the top court, the arguments are currently underway, and we'll come back to the point that you're making. But an important update coming in with regards to what has been said by Dushyant Dave, and this is important, viewers, because now Dushyant Dave has made it amply clear, and he's pointing out the Babri Masjid analogy. That's what he's trying to bring in at this point in time. Details of the same on your screens, how such assurances were given during the Babri Masjid demolition as well, and all of those rules were violated. Mr. Mohan Krishna, if I could come to you now. What is the need of bringing in the Babri Masjid case at a time that, this case is being taken up by the top court? Now the Waqf Board is saying that this is, an issue that dates back to 200 years, that they are the rightful owners of the Idgah Maidan in Bengaluru, and so no changes should be made. The fact is that this controversy broke out, during the 75 years of independence and the celebrations around it, and people now growingly demanding that everyone be given equal right to use a public property. That's what people are saying. That's how this entire controversy first broke out.
Christine, Shahid Ali is also very clear in his thoughts and intentions. He is making it clear to the nation today. As Kapil Sibal is arguing and Dushyant Dave is arguing in the court hall there. What is your problem, Shahid Ali, if you are lying to the country? Where is the namaz being done there? Occasionally, in Bakrid, in Eid days, except those days, every day it is not there. It is just a Idgah. Idgah means what? You are going there for only prayer, not for namaz. You lie to the country? Come on. We are not here to listen to you, all the lies you are telling to the country. Coming back to the point, what is the problem? Are you not broad-minded? Are you such a narrow-minded
read
people?
Article 25 of Constitution of India
See, now, all this time I was observing you.
Sir, please read Article 25 of Constitution of India.
You are not talking about Constitution.
You people have been violating the Constitution openly. You have no respect for the Constitution, for the law of the land. You have no respect for the Constitution, law of the land.
That is why we are
Article 25 confers fundamental right on all citizens to perform their own religion.
But where is the title? Title is not in your name.
We should sacrifice everything.
It is in the state.
We should sacrifice everything.
How can you claim that it is yours? How can you claim that it is yours?
We will celebrate.
While you're asking those questions of Shahid Ali, there's an update coming in. Justice Banerjee. I need to come in here. There's a court update coming in. Justice Banerjee says, that's an oral observation by the way, let status quo be maintained, to which Justice OK says, see, for 200 years no such thing happened in the land with regards to this particular property. Why now? So that's what the judges are pointing out. Now, if I could come to you, Mr. S.S. Sriram, now a lot of political blame game also, ensuing. You have the Karnataka government certainly at this point in time saying, let's not make it a big deal. It's a matter of 2 to 3 days. But the fact remains that the 1964 judgment was very much in the favor of the Waqf Board, and that's what they're citing. That's what it's all boiling down to, because they're saying that why make changes?
Basically it is not
why not go back to status quo? Why should status quo not be maintained?
No. The last 2 days or so, the multiple statements of our own Muslim friends saying that the title is not theirs. They themselves have agreed over the channels even yesterday. So there is a clear ambiguity as to who owns the land. And that being the case, why can't people who give lectures on secularism, people who give lectures on brotherhood, why can't they themselves come forward to allow the Hindu brothers to celebrate the festival for a day or two max?
Absolutely.
Now this is definitely, there are situations where Mr. Syed Ali talks about constitution, There are highways being blocked on Friday for Namaaz. Hours together, people are held on the roads for them to, clear the roads. And is that a constitutional right? Not so. The constitutional right, as far as people like Syed Dalvi will only use which is convenient to them and not a general public at large. Now, this is
But Dushyant Dave is saying that these assurances were given in Babri Masjid case as well, and all of those undertakings were violated.
Then nobody wants to go and celebrate it in a dargah or in a mosque. This is a land which is open for all. This is a land where there is no clear ownership or title for any specific community. Why can't the land be used for others as well? That's a simple question. And why can't the people who talk secularism and brotherhood come forward to allow that to happen for a day or two? And that is all about it. So where is the question of not being allowed to do is my humble question, please.
Okay. Mr. Deshratan Nigam, that's the question being asked. Also, now Kapil Sibal, while he's putting out his arguments, says that status quo has to be maintained. Balance of convenience is in our favor. They've not interfered for 200 years. Why now? Talk about Dushyant Dave, talk about Kapil Sibal. All of them are arguing on the very same line. If for 200 years, 200 long years, no changes were sought, why this kind of an intervention now?
See, the fact remains that nobody is changing the status quo. It is being only used for 2 or 3 days. The title will be finally decided. That is already a subject matter of dispute, and therefore this is not changing the status quo. Status quo changing means taking over permanent possession or changing the title of the land. I think any lawyer can understand, even a common person can understand.
Absolutely.
It is only for the purposes of these 2 days. That is all, and it is all subject to final outcome. Today only interim status is being argued. Finally, whether the Waqf Act will remain or not, or whether the Waqf Board has a title or not, who has the title, these are questions will be finally decided in a trial. Title cannot be decided in Supreme Court or otherwise. Therefore, nobody is changing the status quo. In the name of status quo, they are trying to prevent legitimate aspirations of a community. That is what I am trying to say. And these so-called secularists, when it comes up to them, then they will start, carrying the Islamic, flag with them. The whole problem arises, the selective nature of, what you call protest, which is there. Now, remember the appointment of a Christian in Tirupati's trust board. Please remember the Kali Mandir in Calcutta, where a Muslim has been appointed on a management board. Why all these things are happening? So we must remember that this is a land and 200-year-old titles, all this is subject matter of dispute before the court. So this is only a permission to a limited extent of celebration of a particular Ganesh Chaturthi and a festival taking place. And I don't think anybody should have an objection to it. Finally, everything is sub judice before the court. If court will take a final call on the title and the ownership.
Okay. Tausif Ahmed, once again, why claim that the land is rightfully yours when you failed to produce the valid documents that were sought? So why, while you've not been able to prove that that land truly belongs to the Waqf Board, are these claims being made? Because the fact of the matter is, one can't keep just quoting the 1964 judgment without providing enough facts. 1964 was long ago. The fact remains, there is an argument being presented wherein it is being said that it's time for us to be broad-minded. It's time for us to make sure that there is no disparity with regards to cultural events, with regards to religious events on any such property. Talk about, festivals related to the Muslim community or the Hindu community or any other community for that matter. Tausif Ahmed.
I am.
All right, the big breaking news coming in. The court is currently dictating the order, so any minute now we're going to expect that big word coming in from the top court, and Justice Banerjee has said that status quo will be maintained. We were just holding a discussion on the status quo aspect of it and how Kapil Sibal and Dushyant Dave went on to say that status quo must be maintained if nobody has had to organize any such event on this land for 200 years. Why this kind of an intervention now? And with regards to the order, Justice Banerjee has said status quo will be maintained. The Supreme Court has ordered status quo as of today. will be maintained is what the top court is saying. Especially petition has been disposed of, so certainly in that sense a setback coming in for the Karnataka government, and a big victory in that sense for the Waqf Board, because the Waqf Board since the very beginning, be it the 2-judge bench and now in front of the 3-judge bench, has been citing the 1964 Supreme Court judgment, has been saying that the land is rightfully theirs, they have the sole claim on the land, they will do what they feel with that very land piece. Now let me go across to Nilashish, who's joining us with more details. This is big breaking news coming in, a setback for the Karnataka government, Nilashish, and victory for the Waqf Board. Alright, before that, Harish is joining us on the phone line, our legal editor who's been getting us all those details from the top court. Harish, over to you.
Yes, so that's right. It's a huge setback for the Karnataka government and the municipal corporation, as the Supreme Court has set aside the judgment of the ruling of the 2-judge bench of the Karnataka High Court, which had in fact permitted the Karnataka government and the municipal corporation to hold the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations in the Bengaluru Idgah Maidan. But today, the Supreme Court order has said that the status quo has to be maintained, and in fact, the Supreme Court bench led by Justice Indira Banerjee found merit in the argument of Kapil Sibal, who had appeared for Waqf Board, that the balance of convenience was in their favor, because for the past 200 years, no such celebration had been done, was not permitted, and prima facie, even in the revenue records showed that this land was a Idgah land, and continuous revenue records proved that the land belonged to the Waqf, and therefore no such celebration could not be permitted by upholding the rights of the minorities communities to administer their property. So, remember during the hearing, the Waqf Board had also cited the Places of Worship Act, which said that status quo has been maintained as of 15th August 1947. So it's a huge setback for Karnataka government and municipal corporation, as Supreme Court has disallowed them to hold the Ganesh Chaturthi celebration in the Idgah Maidan.
And with regards to the last leg of the hearing, Harish, already look like things are going to be turning in the favor of the Waqf Board. But as far as this order goes, what about the longevity of this order? For how long does this order stand valid? Are we just talking about the next 2 to 3 days that were the bone of contention here with regards to the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations?
Yes, that the entire prayer was for allowing the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations scheduled for tomorrow and day after. The Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, who had appeared for the Karnataka government, vehemently pleaded that at least, even Mukul Rohtgi said that the one should be broad-minded and look at the celebrations. Otherwise, the Solicitor General said that at least for 2 days, allow the celebrations, and day after tomorrow, the ground will become back to normal, and all these temporary structure will be dismantled, and the status quo will be maintained. But Supreme Court said that as of now, prima facie, the Supreme Court felt that the balance of convenience is in the favor of the Waqf Board, as for the last 200 years, no such celebration was allowed, and they had prima facie evidence that the land belonged to the Waqf Board, and in fact, so no such relief could be given.
Okay. And what about the options before the other side? What else can they do now? Well, we're just a few hours away from when the celebrations are to kick in across the state, but do they have any other legal options left with them?
No, since this matter has been, the order has been pronounced by the Supreme Court, as of now there is no legal option for them, because the celebration is tomorrow. Remember, even the matter had gone to a 2-judge bench of Justice Hemant Gupta and another judge, and then from there it had gone to the 3-judge bench. So even today the matter had been heard extensively by it was a marathon hearing from 2:45 till now. Two benches have heard the matter, and finally the outcome is that the Karnataka government and Bengaluru Municipal Corporation has been asked to maintain the status quo.
All right, Harish, one last question. Now, we had Justice Banerjee and Justice Oka, both of whom opining that for 200 long years, none of this was done. So why make any sort of changes? Why not let status quo be maintained? What was the turning point during the course of the arguments that were being presented by both the sides? Harish, can you hear me?
Yes, please repeat your question.
Yes, I was meaning to ask you as to, since you were witness to the arguments that were being presented by all sides, what was the turning point really? Because both Justice Banerjee and Justice Oka were of the opinion that status quo be maintained. None of this was brought in for 200 long years. So why now? What was the turning point really?
Yes, in fact, the turning point being that the Supreme Court, the senior advocate Kapil Sibal and Dushyant Dave Dushyant Dave, in fact, pointed to the 1964 judgment of the Supreme Court, whereby prima facie it was observed by the Supreme Court that just because a place is an open playground, it does not mean that the property belongs to the state, and lengthy and continuous revenue records proved that this land, in fact, was an Idgah, and there was a Supreme Court judgment also had in one of its parts said that there was a Kabristan in it. So and even the Waqf Board said that even the last 200 years no such celebration had been allowed, and they also pointed to the Places of Worship Act, which in fact protected the character of a religious place, and said that status quo should be maintained as on 15th August 1947. So all these arguments were put forward. They had also vehemently argued that the single judge in fact had given an order in their favor, and also allowed modification of the order, but despite the single judge saying that there can be modification of the order, they had straight away gone to the double bench and got an order in their favor. And in fact they also argued that this Maidaan, this Idgah Maidan, in fact the religious structure of the Idgah Maidan should be preserved, because this is part of the protecting the property of a minority community, and no message should go that rights of minority community were being trampled upon. So all these arguments were taken into consideration, and the Supreme Court bench led by Justice Indira Banerjee repeatedly asked whether we have only one question: has such a celebration like Ganesh Chaturthi celebration been carried out in the Idgah Maidan? But always the answer was no. And the Supreme Court also pointed out to the fact that there were several injunctions against the Bengaluru Municipal Corporation, but Mukul Rohtgi, appearing for the Karnataka state government, said that the injunction was for building a school in the ground, not for getting for a passage, or not going into the Maidan. But Mukul Rohtgi also argued that the party before the Supreme Court is not the municipal corporation but the state, and whatever injunction was there was the injunction order was being passed against the municipal corporation and not the state.
All right, Harish, now what about the division bench judgment? Because, you know, it did come across as, at least until a few hours ago, that all was in place for the government to just give a go-ahead with Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations at the Idgah Maidan, and that was of course in modification to what the single judge bench had ruled. So what happens next?
Yes, now in fact, remember the Karnataka government and the corporation had suffered a setback from the single judge or single bench of the Karnataka High Court, but then they had rushed to the division bench, which had given them relief, saying that they can issue orders regarding the celebration of the Ganesh Chaturthi at the Idgah Maidan, but against which the Waqf Board had come to the Supreme Court. From here, the Supreme Court had in fact
restored the single judge order of status quo at the Idgah Maidan. So as of now, since the order has been passed by the Supreme Court, that order will prevail, and the order of the division bench of the Karnataka High Court, which had allowed the Bengaluru Municipal Corporation and the Karnataka state to hold the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations at the Idgah Maidan will stand scrapped, and what is the meaning of the Supreme Court order is that the Bengaluru Municipal Corporation or the Karnataka state government cannot host any Ganesh Chaturthi functions tomorrow or day after. And remember, tomorrow is the day of the Ganesh Chaturthi festival, and there is no time left for the Karnataka state or Bengaluru Municipal Corporation to even file an appeal.
That's the final word coming in from the top court, and a big relief for the Waqf Board in that sense. No Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations with regards to the Idgah Maidan as was being contended by the Waqf Board. Thank you, Harish, for joining us and giving us all those non-stop updates from the top court. We were shifting our focus. Now remember, after a girl was burnt to death in Jharkhand's Dumka, another barbaric torture has surfaced from the state, this time from capital Ranchi. A tribal woman employed as a domestic help in a now suspended BJP leader's house was held captive for years altogether. She was beaten up, made to lick urine, thrashed with iron rod and burnt with hot pan. Very shocking and scary details that have come to light. 29-year-old Sunita was rescued by Ranchi police on the 22nd August after a tip-off. Let's listen into what Sunita, who was subjected to unimaginable brutality for years, had to say.
हाँ लोहा का उससे मारा
तुम सही हो जाएगी, तुम एकदम सही होगी, ठीक ना, है ना?
हम चाहते हैं ना, जब ठीक होंगे ना, हम आगे और पढ़ना चाहिए।
एकदम हम लोग पढ़ाएंगे बेटा, हम लोग पढ़ाएंगे बाबू।
जानते हैं जब कहानी गई ना, तब वो जो बेल्ट है ना, उसको मारती थी।
आपको उसका बेल्ट है ना?
हाँ, और इजू है ना, छोटा और कच्ची था।
आपको कलछी से मारी है? वही मारी मैडम?
हाँ,
सीमा पता है?
हाँ, और जानते हैं भैया, जो गरम तवा चला मारी।
This is completely unbelievable, but surely true. Ironically, the suspended BJP leader Seema Patra was a member of the National Working Committee of Mahila Morcha and also the state convener of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. However, after the incident came to light, BJP has suspended her from the party. Times Now also went to her house in Ranchi, but found that house was locked with no one around.
A horrific and shocking case of domestic violence has come to light from Ranchi, where a tribal house help was beaten and physically tortured by her employers, and the employers are Seema Patra and Maheshwar Patra. Now Seema Patra is a former BJP leader and Maheshwar Patra is a former IAS. Now after this incident came to light, the BJP has suspended Seema Patra, and we also know for a fact that how there are horrific videos that have come out that how this tribal woman was subjected to extreme physical torture. Even she was beaten by rods, and even her teeth were removed, and for past as many as 8 years she was not allowed to go out. Now a complaint was filed and police rescued this particular lady from the house of Seema Patra, and now what we are being told is that her statement is being recorded, and the official investigating process is going on. But the question is that when exactly Seema Patra will be behind the bars, because she ironically was the state convener of Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao, and she was doing such kind of physical violence. She was involved in this particular case. As of now we are trying to reach out to her. We'll just check that if we can talk to Seema Patra, but we have been here, we have been trying to reach out to Seema Patra and Maheshwar Patra, but nobody is coming out. It seems that the house is locked and nobody is inside, and they have gone out since this incident has come to light.
So questions certainly being asked of the BJP with regards to the BJP's association with this Neta, but questions also being asked of the JMM, even as spate of crimes against women are being reported from Jharkhand. Chief Minister Hemant Soren appears to be busy saving his chair. A week after the Chief Minister and his MLAs were seen enjoying a boat ride, Soren and company have now fled Ranchi and are on their way to a resort in Raipur.
ये कोई आश्चर्यचकित और नया परिपाटी नहीं है और ना ही कुछ कानूनी होने जा रहा है। हर परिस्थिति का सामना करने के लिए सत्ता पक्ष तैयार है। राज्य में षड्यंत्रकारियों को जवाब सत्ता पक्ष बड़े तरीके से इनको जवाब देगा।
That's not it, viewers. In the resort, all possible arrangements are being made to ensure the MLAs have a good time. Times Now found a government vehicle outside the Mayfair Resort in Raipur, where the MLAs are being moved to. Shockingly, the vehicle was filled with expensive liquor bottles even before the MLAs arrived there.
ये देख सकते हैं कि इस वक्त हम मेफेयर रिसोर्ट के सामने हैं और यहाँ पर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ छत्तीसगढ़ आबकारी विभाग की गाड़ी आ चुकी है और ये देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर जो है विधायकों के लिए शराब की व्यवस्था की गई है। तस्वीरों में आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर ये देखिए महंगी महंगी विदेशी शराब की व्यवस्था यहाँ पर की गई है। ये तस्वीरें देख सकते हैं, ये देखिए, ये ग्लैंड फिटीज, ये शराब की बोतलें देख सकते हैं कि ये देखिए महंगी महंगी शराब की व्यवस्था इसी मेफेयर रिसोर्ट्स में की गई है। ये देख सकते हैं, ये अलग अलग देख सकते हैं। इसके अलावा जो है ये तस्वीर आपको दिखाने की कोशिश करते हैं। ब्लैक डॉग ग्लैंड फिटीज, तमाम जो शराब की पूरी एक बोलेरो गाड़ी जो है भरकर यहाँ पर लाई गई है कि झारखंड के जो विधायक यहाँ पर पहुंचे उन्हें किसी भी तरह की कोई दिक्कत नहीं हो। सिवॉस, रीगल, ऐसे जो तमाम जो है अलग अलग शराब के जो ब्रांड है वो यहाँ पर लाए गए हैं। देख सकते हैं कि विधायकों को किसी भी तरह कोई दिक्कत ना हो, इसलिए ये बताइए कहाँ किसके लिए ले जा रहे हो शराब?
तो सर बताएंगे।
नहीं, कौन सर बताएंगे? छत्तीसगढ़ सरकार की गाड़ी है, ये लिखा हुआ है आबकारी विभाग की, और यहाँ पर आप ये देख सकते हैं कि पूरी शराब यहाँ पर लाई गई है। ये पूरी गाड़ी भरी हुई है। ये देख सकते हैं ब्लैक डॉग के अलावा जो है ये ग्लैंड फिटीज देख सकते हैं। ये यहाँ पर जो है अलग अलग महंगी महंगी शराब यहाँ पर लाई गई है और देख सकते हैं ये शराब जो है, ये देख सकते हैं ये शराब यहाँ पर लाई गई है। इसके अलावा जो है कई महंगे ब्रांड के शराब यहाँ पर लाए गए हैं ताकि जो है छत्तीसगढ़ जो विधायक पहुंचे झारखंड के उन्हें किसी भी तरह की कोई दिक्कत न हो। और देख सकते पुलिस व्यवस्था तैनात है। इसके बावजूद इसकी कोई पर्ची वर्ची है? कोई पर्ची है क्या? कोई पर्ची है क्या आपके पास?
साहब से बात करना जी। मेरे
कौन है साहब?
सेवा में किसी भी तरह की
कोई पर्ची है क्या?
तो ये पूरी तरह
शराब लाई गई है, कोई पर्ची है क्या?
की गई है। ये ब्लैक डॉग देख सकते हैं।
ये देख सकते हैं
महंगी से महंगी शराबें जो है यहाँ पर विधायकों के लिए यहाँ पर लाया गया।
यहाँ पर किसी भी तरह की कोई पर्ची नहीं है।
ले जा रहे हैं
शराब यहाँ पर लाया गया है।
कौन साहब?
देख सकते हैं यहाँ पर कि तमाम जो है पुलिस के अधिकारी भी यहाँ पर हैं, लेकिन जो है ये बताइए किसके लिए शराब लाई गई है? क्या चीज? जितेंद्र चंद्राकर है यहाँ, किसके लिए शराब लाई गई है? नहीं तो इस तरह की अवैध शराब क्यों लाई गई है बताइए?
उनसे पूछिए।
नहीं तो आप पुलिस के जब्त करिए, इसको जब्त करिए। अवैध शराब आई है तो ये देख सकते हैं कि तमाम जो है यहाँ पर पुलिस के अधिकारी हैं और विधायकों के लिए यहाँ पर महंगी महंगी शराबें लाई गई है जो रिसोर्ट के अंदर जानी थी, लेकिन जो है मीडिया में तमाम तस्वीरें सामने आ गई, इसलिए गाड़ी को साइड किया गया है। देख सकते हैं कि अधिकारियों के बावजूद यहाँ पर अधिकारी तैनात है, फिर भी यहाँ पर महंगी शराब की बोतलें लाई गई है ताकि जो झारखंड से जो है कांग्रेस और झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा के विधायक यहाँ पर पहुंचे उनके ऐशो आराम में किसी भी तरह की कोई कमी ना जाए। झारखंड की बेटी ने जो है देखा आपने कि किस तरह से जो है उसकी हत्या कर दी गई, और जो है झारखंड के शाहरुख ने जो है एक बेटी की हत्या कर दी, उसे सरेआम जला दिया। लेकिन तमाम विधायक वहां पिकनिक मनाते रहे। अब जो है विधायक यहां पर पिकनिक मनाएंगे और उनके पिकनिक में यहां ऐशो आराम में किसी भी तरह की कोई दिक्कत न हो, इसलिए यहां पर छत्तीसगढ़ की कांग्रेस सरकार ने पीने खाने की पूरी व्यवस्था भी की है।
Can you believe it, viewers? Instead of taking control of the law and order situation in the state, that is the welcome that awaits all of those MLAs of the Soren government. Now, the BJP has trained guns at the Soren Sarkar, accusing it of not working to ensure justice to the family of the Dumka victim, and instead being busy to save their government.
पूरे झारखंड की जनता आज आक्रोशित है और लगातार हम जब से वो घटना घटी है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी उस परिवार के साथ और उस पीड़ित के साथ खड़ी थी। सरकार ने उचित इलाज की व्यवस्था नहीं की, व्यवस्था करने के बजाय सत्ता बचाने के लिए मुख्यमंत्री जी पिकनिक मना रहे थे और भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कार्यकर्ता संघर्ष कर रहे हैं उसको न्याय दिलाने के लिए। और जो घटना घटी है वहां पर पुलिस प्रशासन की भूमिका संदेहास्पद है।
My colleagues Mohit and Jaiprakash joining us on this broadcast. Let me quickly go across to Jaiprakash first. Jaiprakash, जो आपने हमें दिखाया काफी शॉकिंग, काफी एक्सप्लोसिव, ये ऐसा वेलकम तैयार करा हुआ है रायपुर में इन एमएलएस के लिए, जबकि बेटियां वहां सुरक्षित नहीं है, बेटियों के खिलाफ अत्याचार पे अत्याचार हो रहा है। सोरेन सरकार वहां से भाग गई है और ऐसा वेलकम इंतजार कर रहा है इन सबके लिए।
जी बिल्कुल, शायद इसीलिए जो झारखंड के विधायक हैं उन्हें छत्तीसगढ़ लाया गया है। छत्तीसगढ़ में कांग्रेस की सरकार है, यहाँ बाकायदा सेवा सत्कार होगा और विधायक भी सुरक्षित रहेंगे, किसी तरह की खरीद फरोख्त नहीं हो पाएगी। इसीलिए छत्तीसगढ़ के रायपुर को ठिकाना चुना गया। और बड़ी बात तो ये है कि यहाँ जो तमाम व्यवस्था की गई है खाने पीने की, उसके अलावा रात में शराब की व्यवस्था की गई है, तो कहीं ना कहीं ये दिखाता है कि विधायक जो है यहाँ पर आएंगे और बाकायदा 2-3 दिन रहेंगे, तो ऐशो आराम की पूरी व्यवस्था की गई है। और बड़ी बात तो ये है कि अंकिता की जिस तरह से हत्या हो जाती है, हत्या के बाद जो है सरकार सिर्फ दुख प्रकट करती है, लेकिन जो है सरकार के जो विधायक है जिन्हें जनता चुनती है, उनमें संवेदना इतनी खत्म हो गई है कि वो यहाँ पर रहेंगे और जिस तरह से खूंटी में पिकनिक मना रहे थे उसी तरह रायपुर में पिकनिक मनाएंगे। और यहाँ पर पूरी व्यवस्था की गई है उनके खाने पीने की। इसके अलावा जो है कहीं ना कहीं ये माना जा रहा है कि छत्तीसगढ़ में ही जो है पूरी रणनीति तैयार होगी कि किस तरह से झारखंड में सरकार बचाना है, क्योंकि छत्तीसगढ़ सुरक्षित ठिकाना माना जा रहा है। तो यहाँ पर पूरी रणनीति होगी और यहाँ पर खाने पीने की व्यवस्था के साथ जो है इनको शराब और शबाब की पूरी व्यवस्था कहीं ना कहीं कराने की बात कही जा रही है। बीजेपी लगातार आरोप लगा रही है कि जिस तरह से विधायक यहाँ पर आए हैं और जिस तरह से शराब की यहाँ पर व्यवस्था की गई है, तो हो सकता है इसके अलावा और भी व्यवस्थाएं जो है कहीं ना कहीं जो है यहाँ पर हो, इसलिए यहाँ पर विधायक पहुंचे हुए हैं। लेकिन बड़ी बात यह है कि जो विधायकों के अंदर संवेदना होती है कि जिस तरह से दुमका में एक बेटी की हत्या कर दी जाती है, उसके बाद जो है यहाँ पर विधायक पहुंचेंगे और पहुंचने के बाद खातिरदारी होगी। और जो 10 दिन का एक वक्त होता है हिंदू धर्म में कि एक क्रियाकर्म होता है, उस उतने दिन भी जो है विधायक यहाँ पर इंतजार नहीं कर सकते। यहाँ पर पूरी तरह से जो है ऐशो आराम की व्यवस्था की गई है विधायकों के लिए। तो ये माना जा रहा है कि जो मे फेयर रिसोर्ट है, जहाँ पहले भी कई बार ये देखा गया है कि जब विधायक संकट में होते थे तो यहाँ कांग्रेस के जो सरकार है यहाँ लाया जाता था विधायकों को। अब जो है झारखंड के विधायक यहाँ पर पहुंचे हैं, झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा के और कांग्रेस के विधायक, कुल मिलाकर जो यूपीए के गठबंधन के विधायक है वो यहाँ पहुंचे हैं। और यहाँ पर
जयप्रकाश शहजाद पूनावाला joining us on the phone line. Shehzad, you know, falling short of words really here, because the law and order situation in Jharkhand is for everyone to see. The Chief Minister along with his men busy to save his chair, but what's most shocking is that's the kind of welcome that awaits them. Vehicles filled with liquor bottles even before their arrival.
You know, this is not a JMM Sarkar, it is a MMM Sarkar. Money, mining mafia and minority appeasement. And on the one hand, you have seen the tragic killing of Ankita, and that has happened because the Sarkar is in picnic mode. And because it is in picnic mode, this entire incident took place with Ankita. She was not given proper protection. No action was taken on Shahrukh. No action was taken against those who allowed this to happen. And in fact, they were trying to even not give her proper treatment. They sent her only to RIMS. No air ambulance was done for her to come to Delhi. And now the government, Jharkhand government is more busy in saving Satta. So for them, Satta is more important than Siddhant, and therefore you are seeing this kind of visual play out. This is the most insulting visual that will show what their entire focus was. It was not for saving the life of Ankita, it was on saving their own seat and their own power. Absolutely. And just explains to us how, you know, all those condemnations and those cries are nothing but crocodile tears. Thank you for that, Shehzad. A big explosive report coming in from Raipur. Thank you, Jaiprakash, for that big update. We need to slip into a very short break. Be back with another top story on the other side.
The most pressing issues, the most informed minds, free and fair exchange. Converse India with Rahul Shivshankar.
Outrage across India as one of the influential Lingayat seers, Shivamurthy Muruga, who is accused of sexually assaulting 2 minors over a period of 3.5 years, is still not arrested. The BJP, which is at the helm of affairs, is facing heat for going soft on the accused seer. But why? Because just this morning we saw a BJP MLA for the second time rushing to meet the pontiff of the mutt. GH Tippa Reddy says he has been visiting the mutt since childhood and that the allegations are still not proven against Shivamurthy Muruga. Even the seers from different mutts have come out in support of the accused seer. They say once acquitted of all charges, Shivamurthy Muruga will take the Sri Muruga mutt to greater heights, but chose to evade questions on the victim. Listen in.
ಪರಮಪೂಜ್ಯರು ವಿಚಾರವಂತರು, ವೈಚಾರಿಕೆಯ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆ ಸಹಿಸದ ಕೆಲವು ಪಟ್ಟಬದ್ಧ ಹಿತಾಸಕ್ತಿಗಳು ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಯ ಮುಖಕ್ಕೆ ಕಪ್ಪು ಮಸಿನ ಬೆಳತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಷಡ್ಯಂತ್ರವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಪರಮಪೂಜ್ಯರು ಈ ಆರೋಪ ಮುಕ್ತರಾಗಿ ಹೊರಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲ ನಾಡಿನ ಪರಮಪೂಜ್ಯರ ಆಶಯ ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ, ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ, ಸತ್ಯವಾಗಿರ್ತದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸತ್ಯ ಹೊರಬರ್ತದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಯವರ ಬೆಂಬಲಕ್ಕೆ, ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಯವರ ಹೋರಾಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಪರಮಪೂಜ್ಯ ಶಿವಮೂರ್ತಿ ಮುರುಘರಾಜೇಂದ್ರ ಮಹಾಸ್ವಾಮಿಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ಶಾಖಾ ಮಠಾಧೀಶರು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೂಜ್ಯರು ಅವರ ಜೊತೆಲಿದ್ದು.
That's all from me in this edition of news. Updates continue on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Let me categorically say we reject the insinuations in such statements about India. Sri Lanka is a sovereign country and makes its own independent decisions. Let me categorically say we reject the insinuations in such statements about India. Sri Lanka is a sovereign country and makes its own independent decisions. Insofar as India-Sri Lanka relations are concerned, you are aware, we've been talking about it, the centrality of Sri Lanka.
Nation wants to know Madhav's Gopalakrishnan. First up, a quick look at the top 50 stories. As excise policy scam intensifies, CBI today examined Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia's bank locker in the Punjab National Bank in Ghaziabad. Following searches, Manish Sisodia said that his family from the CBI. Meanwhile, Anna Hazare launched a scathing attack on Arvind Kejriwal, says AAP has forgotten all its ideologies and is drunk on power. During the Delhi Assembly session, Manish Sisodia attacks the BJP, says centre must answer people's questions on price rise. Soon after Aam Aadmi Party's self-clean chit claim, BJP hit out at the party for acting as an investigating agency. The Bharatiya Janata Party staged a protest against Aam Aadmi Party outside Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's residence. In a major setback for the Karnataka government, Supreme Court has ordered no Ganesh Puja to be held at the Idgah Maidan in Bengaluru. During the dictation of the Idgah Maidan verdict, Supreme Court has added that status quo should be maintained. After Bengaluru, the Waqf Board has moved the Karnataka High Court against the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations. The petition was dismissed for allowing Ganesh idols at the Idgah Maidan in Hooghly. Rapid Action Force holds march at Bengaluru's Idgah grounds amidst rising tensions over the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations. Lingayat seers have come in support of Muruga Mutt seer, who's been accused of sexually assaulting minor girls. Meanwhile, BJP MLA G.S. Reddy has visited the Muruga Mutt today and assured that a fair probe will be conducted in the sexual assault case. USP Noor Mustafa Dumka has been suspended following allegations of negligence and also for helping the accused Shah Rukh Hussain. A special investigation team has been formed by the Jharkhand police to oversee the Dumka death probe. The team will be headed by Superintendent of Police. Jharkhand High Court has taken suo motu cognizance in the Dumka case, summons the DGP and Home Secretary. Meanwhile, the Child Welfare Committee in Jharkhand's Dumka district has demanded action against the accused under the POXO Act. 3 brothers have killed a 19-year-old Dalit youth who was allegedly in a relationship with their sister in the village in UP's Basti. Police have registered a case. Probe is underway. BJP leader Seema Patra booked for assault on tribal woman who she allegedly held captive for 8 years while resorting to beating and thrashing her repeatedly. In a big fallout of Ghulam Nabi Azad's exit from the Congress, 51 leaders today have resigned from the JK unit, taking the total number of resignations to 64. In a big relief for leaders like Uma Bharti, L.K. Advani and M.M. Joshi, the Apex Court has closed all contempt proceedings in the Babri demolition case. DMK's ally and VCK General Secretary Vani Arasu has demanded that Tamil Nadu break away from India by getting rid of Sanatan Dharma. BJP leader Subramaniam Swamy said Vani Arasu should be arrested and anyone who demonstrates independent Tamil Nadu should be put in jail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Karnataka and Kerala on the 1st of September and the 2nd. During this visit, he will inaugurate projects worth 3,800 crore rupees. Captain Amrinder Singh has met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Issues with regard to Punjab's politics were discussed at this meeting. UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath to visit Karnataka on the 1st of September for an inauguration ceremony in the SDM College in Nelamangala. Lawyer Sudipta Roy has been arrested for sending a fake threat letter to the Asansol CBI Special Court Judge Rajesh Chakrabarti, who denied bail to TMC's Anubrata Mandal. The Supreme Court closed all proceedings initiated in the wake of the 2002 post-Godhra communal riots in Gujarat. Top Court has said that cases have become pointless with the passage of time. Tharoor has refused to comment on whether he would throw his hat into the ring for Congress's presidential polls, but said that elections will be good for the party. Sachin Tapan Bishnoi, one of the key accused in the murder of Sidhu Moosewala, has been detained in Azerbaijan. JNU's rector Ajay Dubey has resigned amidst a slew of allegations against him. This a week after ABVP members and security staff clashed on campus. An unfortunate incident from Kozhikode, a 50-year-old man lost his life in an ambulance after the door failed to open. Union Home Minister Amit Shah honored policemen and police wards who won these medals in the Commonwealth Games 2022. Udupi's Old Taluk Office Circle has been renamed as Savarkar Circle by the local municipal council. Kerala Assembly has passed a controversial Lokayukta amendment bill that seeks to make the executive the appellate authority over reports by the Lokayukta. Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis flagged off a trial run of the Metro Line 3 in RA Colony. The Delhi High Court has adjourned the hearing on the plea of bail plea of Umar Khalid for tomorrow in the Northeast Delhi riots case. Actor Kamal R. Khan was arrested for a 2-year-old controversial tweet when he landed at the Mumbai airport. With Kerala expected to receive heavy rain till Saturday, the Indian Meteorological Department has issued a yellow alert in all districts of the state except Kasaragod. Following heavy rains, the government has declared a holiday for all private, aided and government schools and also for pre-university colleges in Bengaluru. India has reported over 5,400 new COVID cases, active cases comprising 0.15% of the total infections. Gautam Adani is now the world's third richest person. He is the first Asian in the top 3. Linthoi Chanambam, who recently became the first Indian to win a world title in judo, was commemorated and in fact felicitated by the Sports Authority of India. Special video montage where Oprah Winfrey was played at the Arthur Ashe Stadium after Serena Williams won her opening match at the US Open. Germany and France have issued a joint warning against a ban on tourist visas for Russians, saying that such a step would be counterproductive. Supporters of a prominent Iraqi Shiite cleric fired rocket-propelled grenades onto Iraq's green zone, deepening the political chaos. German Ambassador Philip Ackermann said that China's claim that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of China is outrageous. In fact, they said that this border infringement is unacceptable. Several big Chinese cities escalated the COVID-19 restrictions, with Shenzhen closing more businesses and Dalian locking down millions. Sri Lanka received the first tranche of food assistance valued at $1.5 million from the government of Japan. The death toll from the Pakistan floods climbs to over 1,100, with over 33 million people affected. As Pakistan continues to battle the country's worst monsoon floods, Pakistan's Federal Minister Ehsan Iqbal has warned of acute food shortages in the near term. And on to our top focus at this hour. This is a story that no other channel will report. We get you two tales, separated by geography but united in their fate and plight. In Basti, a 19-year-old Dalit boy was killed for daring to love a Muslim girl. He was abducted, strangled and buried in the field by the brothers of this girl. Unable to bear his death, the young girl committed suicide. Her body was swiftly buried by her family. Across in Jharkhand, Islamist intolerance strikes again, in fact this time under the watch of the so-called secular Sarkar of the Congress and JMM in Jharkhand. In the small village of Palamu, 50 Dalit families have been abused, thrashed and their homes razed. A rampaging mob of hundreds of Islamists allegedly turned their huts into dust.
leaving behind a trail of broken dreams and devastation. Women and children now aimlessly wander in the forests, desolate and destitute. Adding insult to the injury, the Muslim mob has paid them 500 rupees and asked them to hand over their land to them. Rupees 500, the price for their hopes and homes for the last 35 years. While the Muslim slide claimed the poorest of poor were encroaching on madrasa land, the Dalits plead and say that it's Sarkari land where they have lived for decades. Now that they have been hounded out of their heath and homes, they have nowhere to go. While the intolerance of the Islamist shocks, it's the silence of the secularists which is deafening. Hear these pleas by Dalit families which have fallen on deaf ears.
बाकी कहीं नहीं हम लोग को हिलने दिया साहब, कहीं नहीं जाने दिया, कालर धर लिया, थोपा थोपी नवाड़ी पर मार भी दिया, यहाँ पंजरी पर हुरा पर मारा है साहब। देखिए सर यहाँ मारा है, इनको बड़का भैया के भी मार दिया और बोला लाइन में लगो, तो हम लोग लाइन में लग गए। सुनिए साहब, लाइन में लग गए, पूरा फैमिली हम लोग लाइन में लग गए। तो बच्चा के 500 राजन नाम के जो मुरु मातू में रहते हैं मियाँ, 500 बच्चा के घर पर जितना बच्चा फैमिली है घर पर उन लोग के 500 रुपया दिया गया है कल। और वो सब जितना घर पर है सब घर पर हम लोग फैमिली उनको सब एक तरफा उन लोग 1 क्विंटल चावल गिरा दिया कि तुम लोग ये चावल लो, 500 रुपया लो, अब हम गाड़ी अपना गांव से निकाल रहे हैं, अब गाड़ी में तुम लोग के सामान हम ठूस दे रहे हैं और तुम लोग को भी बैठा दे रहे हैं, और चलो और जंगल में तुम लोग के जहाँ है रहना वहाँ रहो।
अब तो क्या कहे कि लोग इसराइल मुखिया सब होगा, आओ मुख्तार डीलर, आदरू वार्ड, इंतजार, साहब मदीना, ये लोग मिल करके सब झोपड़ा लड़का बगारी के तोड़ दिया, टीबीसीडी कहाँ ले जाके बिक दिया, एक आदमी भी की करिश्मा कर दिया।
कितना दिन से आप लोग वहाँ रहे थे?
हम लोग वहाँ से मैंने ढेर ही दिन हो गया गुरुजी, याद नहीं है, बाकी नंबर देखिए तो याद होगा।
सब किया था इन लोग, तो था इन लोग मान लिए, पार्टी थाना से बोला के प्रशासन को बोला के अनाज पानी जिम्मा देता कि जिम्मा दे रहे हैं तुम खाली कर दो, झाड़ देने उन्होंने जाके फेंक दिया है।
And after being hounded out, the Dalits have sought help from the police. So far, 12 persons have been named in an FIR, while 150 are unknown persons, but their homes have not been returned to them.
जो लोग ऐसा किया है, जो जिम्मेवार व्यक्ति हैं, उनके खिलाफ FIR दर्ज कर दी गई है थाने में, पांडे थाने में, और मुसलमान परिवार के लोगों को यहाँ बुलाया गया सबको, और उन लोगों को वहीं पर जहाँ से उन लोगों को उजाड़ा गया है, क्योंकि इन लोगों को इच्छा है कि जहाँ से मुझे उजाड़ा गया वहीं मुझे बसाया जाए, उन लोगों को वहीं पूरी सुरक्षा के तहत उन लोगों को वहीं बसाया जाएगा। और अभी धोती साड़ी दिया गया उनको सहायता के तौर पर, अनाज की व्यवस्था की जा रही है।
देखिए, इसमें जैसे हम लोगों को सूचना मिली तो वरीय पदाधिकारियों के निर्देशानुसार हम यहाँ पर आए और SDO साहब भी हैं साथ में। FIR की बात है तो हम लोगों ने FIR दर्ज कर दिया है। जितने भी मुसलमान परिवार के लोग यहाँ आए, उन्होंने जो भी बातें बताई उसके अनुसार हम लोगों ने विधि सम्मत तरीके से FIR दर्ज कर दी है और उसके अनुसार हम लोग अच्छी कार्रवाई कर रहे हैं। और इनके रिहेबिलिटेशन के लिए अभी हम लोगों ने प्रशासन की तरफ से इनको धोती और ये साड़ी वगैरह दिया है।
All right, let's take this across to our guest. Joining us with us is RP Singh, National Spokesperson of the BJP. Karan Verma, author, is with us. We also have with us Ganesh Singh, who is the General Secretary of the Bhim Army. Abdul Basid, a political analyst, is with us. Let me start with Abdul Basid on this. Abdul Basid ji, all right, we've lost Abdul Basid there. We'll try and reconnect with him. But let me start with Ganesh Singh. Ganesh Singh, ये कई बार हम देखते हैं कि पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, आपकी पार्टी भी कई बार कह चुकी है कि दलित्स एंड मुस्लिम शुड कम टुगेदर। ऑन ग्राउंड इस तरह की कोई फॉर्मेशन होते नहीं दिख रही, क्योंकि ऑन ग्राउंड जो दिख रही है और दो अलग अलग घटनाएं, बस्ती से लेके झारखंड की जो दोनों घटनाएं, उसमें कहीं ना कहीं ये दिखता है कि किस तरह से दलितों पर अत्याचार आज के डेट में भी हो रहे हैं, और इस तरह की क्रूरता और इस तरह की इंटॉलरेंस जो देखी जा रही है, कहीं ना कहीं इस पर बहुत बड़े सवाल खड़े होते हैं।
जी, जैसे कि आप इस बात को जानते हैं कि एट्रोसिटी का जो मामला है जो दलितों पे हो रहा है लगातार, वो कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि एक किसी धर्म या हिंदू, मुस्लिम, सिख, ईसाई, सब लोग जिनमें एक ऊंच नीच की जो एक भावना है, जो एक एट्रोसिटी SC ST के अगेंस्ट जो उन लोगों को इतने सालों से जो उत्पीड़न वो लोग दलितों पे लगातार करते आ रहे हैं, ये उसी चीज का मामला है। इसमें ऐसा नहीं है कि मुस्लिम है तो इस वजह से ये चीज हो रही है। आप ये देखें कि कितने मामले ऐसे आए लगातार कि जहां पर इंदर मेघवाल के साथ भी, चाहे मनीषा वाल्मीकि के साथ बलात्कार का मामला हुआ रहा हो, और आज ही जो है स्टेट कन्वीनर जो सीमा पात्रा है, जिन्होंने 8 साल से आदिवासी महिला को अपने साथ अपने घर पे, अपने आवास में उनको बंद रख रखा था और उनको पेशाब पिलाने का भी तक काम कर रहे थे, आपने देखा होगा ये बात। और मान्यवर काशीराम साहब ये कहते हैं कि जो पिटे हैं वो सब लोग एक साथ आ जाएं। तो हम लोग
सर सिंपल सवाल मेरा ये है कि राज्य सरकार,
ओबीसी माइनॉरिटी और
सर सिंपल सवाल आपका ये है, सिंपल सवाल मेरा ये है आपसे कि अगर ये दूसरे किसी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की सरकार वहां होती तो कहीं ना कहीं ये सवाल होता कि उनके शासन में, उनके शासित राज्यों में इस तरह की घटनाएं हो रही है, तो झारखंड सरकार इस पर अभी तक इनको न्याय क्यों नहीं दिला पाई है?
नहीं, न्याय दिलाना चाहिए, चाहे अगर झारखंड हो या फिर आप इंदर मेघवाल राजस्थान का मामला हो, चाहे यूपी में बीजेपी सरकार हो, चाहे मध्य प्रदेश का मामला हो, ये जो लड़ाई है, ये लड़ाई जो है सामाजिक परिवर्तन, आर्थिक मुक्ति की लड़ाई है। ये हम यहाँ पे राजनीति नहीं कर रहे हैं। हमारे लिए सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी है कि 5000 साल की गुलामी के बाद और आज अगर हम आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव बना रहे हैं तो हमारे लिए जरूरी है कि हम लोगों को भी मनुष्य, अपना एक इंसान समझा जाए। हमें इस तरीके से ट्रीट ना किया जाए कि हमें हमेशा
Let me bring in RP Singh on this. Let me bring in RP Singh, because RP Singh, he is saying that this doesn't matter which state it happens. He is saying that it is about inhuman treatment, and inhuman treatment happens at the hands of all religions and all political parties of different hues and colors and different regions and states in the country. RP Singh.
Well, Madhav, it's not because it's happening in particular state. I mean, although it's happening in Jharkhand, but issue is why it's happening. They are trying to possess the land of the Mahadalits for madrasa, for religious objective. This is an expansionist point, way of the Islam, and then wherever they can do it, they are grabbing land, they are grabbing people, they are converting people. This is happening. Here they are trying to grab land and then forcing Mahadalits out of, I read it, that they have been staying almost from 4 decades and paying them penalty of some 500 rupees and some rice and saying move out of this place. And police has not acted as it should have been acted. I mean, it's a case of atrocity, not only atrocities, it's a case against Mahadalit. Why it has not been pursued under the SC Act? And why strict action has not been taken? And why the land has not been restored to the people who people have been staying there from so many decades? But the question is, since it's being done by a particular community, that's why you will not raise questions. And it looks like as we are in Afghanistan or Pakistan. I mean, some days back we heard about a Sikh girl being kidnapped and then how she was being forcefully married to a Muslim boy in Pakistan. We can in Balochistan. I mean,
okay.
We can see this happening in Pakistan.
Abdul Basit.
How can this happen in India?
I want Abdul Basit to come in on this. Abdul Basit, ये इस तरह के stringent provisions कानून के क्यों नहीं लाए गए? अभी तक वो 50 लोग जो दलित परिवारों से आए हैं वो अभी तक सड़क पे हैं, उनकी घर, उनकी जमीन सब कुछ छीनी गई, उनसे 500 रुपए दिया गया उनको मुआवजे के तौर पे और 1 क्विंटल चावल। ये कहाँ का न्याय है सर?
देखिए ये गरीबी पिताओं का जो राष्ट्रीय भारतीय जनता पार्टी का जो नारा था वो बिल्कुल सामने आ रहा है। आप एंटी दलित कोई पार्टी भारत देश में है तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी है। आप इस बात को समझिए।
सर बीजेपी शासित प्रदेश नहीं है ये। अब्दुल बसीत जी किसकी सरकार है झारखंड में? अब्दुल बसीत जी किसकी सरकार है झारखंड में?
स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का जो काम है वो सरकार बखूबी निभा रही है। बहुत बढ़िया हेमंत सोरेन सरकार है। देश में, पूरे देश में प्रचलित।
सर दलित अट्रॉसिटी के सेक्शंस कहां लागू हैं?
वन मैन वन राशन कार्ड की नीति बताइए कहां?
एससी एसटी अट्रॉसिटी, इस केस की बात करिए अब्दुल बसीत जी। हम पूरे सरकार का ब्यौरा नहीं ले सकते आपसे। इस केस में क्या एक्शन लिया स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने? इस केस में क्या एक्शन लिया है?
आरपी सिंह भली भांति जानते हैं कि देश में दलित को दबाने वाली पार्टी कौन है। आरपी सिंह आपको बहुत अच्छा बता सकते हैं, मगर ये क्योंकि
सर आप इधर उधर की बात मत करिए, मूल मुद्दे पे बताइए कि वहां झारखंड सरकार ने इनको जमीन क्यों नहीं लौटाई अभी तक? ये सब प्रोसेसिंग सिस्टम है। देखिए हम लोग सरकार जिन्होंने जमीन हड़पी है उनके खिलाफ दलित एक्ट में मुकदमा क्यों नहीं दर्ज किया अभी तक?
दलित एक्ट, देखिए दलित एक्ट का सिस्टम सारा गवर्नमेंट, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने अपने, ये इसका एक बाकायदा एक मंत्रालय है, SC मंत्रालय का ये काम है।
आप कुछ अनपढ़ हैं या कुछ समझते नहीं?
अरे
ये बताइए मेरे को,
जवाब दो ना आप, जवाब
कानून व्यवस्था किसके पास आती है? कानून व्यवस्था किसके पास आती है? मुख्यमंत्री जी तो बिजी है वो पिकनिक मनाने में।
आप ये देखिए कि जो आप स्ट्रेटजी समझिए, दलित विरोधी जो कानून है SC का,
मुख्यमंत्री का समय है पिकनिक से, अपने विधायकों को लेकर पिकनिक गए हुए हैं मुख्यमंत्री जी।
अरे आप अपना पल्ला मत झाड़िए, आप अपना पल्ला मत झाड़िए, हर चीज
तो सरकार का पार्ट
ये बोल के कि भी राष्ट्रीय पार्टी का मुद्दा है। राष्ट्रीय पार्टी का मुद्दा नहीं है, ये राज्य पार्टी का भी मुद्दा है। चाहे कोई भी पार्टी हो, मैं कांग्रेस की भी बात करता हूँ, चाहे आपकी झारखंड में पार्टी की बात हो, यहाँ पर आप सिर्फ आपने हर चीज का ठेका आपने दूसरों पे नहीं डाल सकते, आप अपना पल्ला नहीं झाड़ सकते।
अब्दुल बसीद जी, ये बीजेपी प्रवक्ता नहीं है। एक सेकंड, लेट मी जस्ट कम इन। अब्दुल बसीद जी एक सेकंड के लिए शांत हो जाइए। आपसे जो अभी सवाल पूछ रहे हैं, ये बीजेपी के प्रवक्ता नहीं है, ये भीम आर्मी के जनरल सेक्रेटरी है गणेश सिंह, और वो साफ तौर पे आपसे ये सवाल पूछ रहे हैं कि आप ऐसे पल्ला नहीं झाड़ सकते। कानून व्यवस्था राज्य सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर इज अ स्टेट सब्जेक्ट, ये सब जानते हैं। आप फिर भी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को क्लीन चिट कैसे देख सकते हैं सर?
ये अपनी सुप्रीमेसी बचाने के लिए
बता रहा हूं मैं आपको, हेमंत सोरेन एक ड्राइव चला रहे हैं जिसके अंतर्गत और सभी SC कमेटियों को निर्धारित किया गया है।
इस स्पेसिफिक केस की बात करने से ड्राइव छोड़िए
सर, यहाँ पे न्याय कहाँ हुआ है? आप क्या कह रहे हैं अब्दुल बसीद जी? लोग सड़क पे खड़े हैं, उनके पास ना घर है, ना जमीन है, ना जंगल में बैठे हैं वो लोग, और वो मांग रहे हैं कि न्याय दिया जाए। सरकार 50 लोगों को ऐसे बेघर कैसे कर सकती है?
बट वी आर ऑन बोथ आर सेम प्लेटफॉर्म।
No, but then where is the justice? What has your government done for these people? Let me bring in Karan Verma. You know, Karan Verma, this is absolutely shocking. Instead of addressing the issue, we are speaking in generalities of what the government has done. Here 50 people are on the road. Right. They don't have a roof over their heads. They have been thrown out of their house, and here you have the government that has done nothing and says that a good job has been done. The spokesperson says a great job being done by the Jharkhand government.
And the government would want its best to not do anything, Madhav, because the perpetrators happen to be of a community that they eye as a vote bank. I am addressing the elephant in the room. The fact is that today, because they happen to be from a certain religion, radicalism is not taken head on, and until and unless we do that, we are going to have more ugly incidents like that. Jai Bhim, Jai Meem has been nothing but a farce. There have been so many instances, right from Muradabad to Bareilly to Meerut, we can go on counting. The fact is, radicalism doesn't see anyone. And as far as political convenience is concerned, every time people say, sab pichhadon ko ek saath ho jana chahiye, that doesn't work. Until and unless you don't address the radical perpetrator who's committing these crimes, the holier than thou philosophy, you will not solve these problems. You will continue to have these incidents. Political parties like Hemant Soren's party will continue to drag its feet, and nobody will address it until and unless they come together and say, enough of this vote bank consideration, let's take on this issue head on and let law and order prevail for what it is.
अब्दुल बसीद जी, चाहे आप इसे दलित मुस्लिम यूनिटी कहे, चाहे जय भीम जय मीम कहे, जो भी आप उसको टर्मिनोलॉजी देना चाहें, उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता। अल्टीमेटली ऑन ग्राउंड उसे इंप्लीमेंट करना बहुत मुश्किल है, और जो यहां दिख रहा है करण वर्मा का सीधा आरोप है कि आप अपीजमेंट की राजनीति खेल रहे हैं यहां पे।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
देखिए, केंद्र सरकार में 72 MP महादलित कम्युनिटी से आते हैं, 75 MP, मगर आज तक का रिकॉर्ड है, मोदी जी ने किसी भी महादलित MP को फ्रंट में आने की वो नहीं दी। उसके अलावा 2.5
आप इधर न्याय दिलाइए ना उनको, आप इधर उनको न्याय दिलाइए ना। आप ये सब फालतू की बातें क्यों कर रहे हैं रिप्रेजेंटेशन की? आप न्याय तक तो दिला नहीं पा रहे हैं इनको, बड़ी बड़ी बातें कर रहे हैं।
देश की राष्ट्रपति कौन है?
राज्य सरकार इसकी निंदा करती है,
देश की महामहिम
मगर ये केंद्र सरकार को सोचना होगा कि दलितों के लिए किस तरह की नीतियां
पहले एक्शन करके दिखाइए, फिर सवाल करिए। आज आपके एक्शन करने का दिन है।
बीजेपी ने ठेका ले रखा है।
उन लोगों के खिलाफ
आदिवासी पे जमीन बनाने के बाद मुर्मू को अगर राष्ट्रपति बना दिया
one at a time. Everybody can't shout over each other. RP Singh wants to respond to you, Abdul Basit, so please calm down. Listen to RP Singh. RP Singh, he's making a direct charge about the BJP's own commitment towards Dalits. Please respond to him.
वेरी स्मॉल पॉइंट, ये इधर उधर की बात मत करें, सीधी बात है। जिन लोगों ने मदरसा के नाम पर जमीन हड़पी है, इनको धक्का मारकर बाहर निकाला है, जंगल की ओर खदेड़ा है, उनके खिलाफ दलित एक्ट के अंदर मुकदमा कब दर्ज होगा और इन गरीब दलितों को, महादलितों को वापस से इनकी जमीन कब मिलेगी, कितने घंटों में मिलेगी, इसका उत्तर दें।
उत्तर दीजिए अब्दुल बसित, कब न्याय मिलेगा इनको?
आंदोलन की तैयारी कर रहे हैं, चिंता न कीजिए, 2024 में आपको इसका सारा रिजल्ट आएगा।
अरे सर 2024 तो छोड़िए, अरे सर 2024 छोड़िए, 2022 में जो लोगों को घर से बाहर कर दिया है उनको कब आप न्याय दिलाएंगे?
75 साल हो गए, 75 साल आजादी के, अभी भी आप 2024 की लड़ाई करनी है बस। और हम लोग क्या ऐसे ही है बस कि हम लोग आपके 2024 का इंतजार करें, राजनीति का एक पार्ट बन जाए, एक मोहरा बन जाए?
अब्दुल बसित, बहुत शर्म आनी चाहिए सर, बहुत ही अजीब तरह के तर्क आप आज के डेट में दे रहे हैं। आप चुनाव की बातें कर रहे हैं, यहाँ पे लोगों को घर से बाहर निकाला जा रहा है। आप में थोड़ी बहुत तो अगर इंसानियत होगी, आप कुछ आश्वासन देंगे कि आपकी सरकार उनको घर कब वापस दिलाएगी, उनको कब वापस, जब एक्शन जिन लोगों ने किया है उन पे क्या पुलिस कार्रवाई होगी, इस तरह के तो आश्वासन दीजिए कम से कम सर। आप तो सीधा राजनीतिक बातें ही करते जा रहे हैं।
2024 के चुनाव
जरा सी भी इंसानियत नहीं है क्या आपके अंदर?
ये लोग कर रहे हैं। दलित
आदमी और प्रति व्यक्ति
के ऊपर अन्याय हो रहा है, उसके
व्यक्ति के साथ खड़ी है।
हम लोग बताएंगे।
All right, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. While parties may wax eloquent about speaking for the rights of Dalits, for Muslims, or whichever social group it may be, ultimately this is what our netas boil down to. Ultimately, it's only about politics. It's only about painting the other guy in bad light. Nobody will take account for their own failures. Even if 50 people have been thrown out of their houses, they don't have a roof over their heads. They are literally wandering those forests, waiting for some kind of help from the government, instead of giving them, some kind of basic humanitarian help and assistance, which has not come their way for the past several days. This is what we have. Only pure politics being played out. That's unfortunately the tragedy of Indian politics as I see it. I'd like to thank all the gentlemen for joining us on our panel this evening. Slipping into a quick break.
Welcome to this Times Now special broadcast. In today's episode of Inside Karnataka, we discuss about the upcoming BBMP election. What do these polls mean for the citizens of Silicon City? What's at stake for the political parties? We give you all these details and much more in the next half an hour of this special broadcast.
Bengaluru, the capital city of Karnataka, has a robust culture of civic activism. It's also an IT hub and in many ways a symbol of the vast strides India has made in the last few decades in the field of technology. It's a cosmopolitan city attracting talent from all parts of the country, a huge recipient of foreign investment, and a place that also stands out for its pleasant weather and greenery. But there are serious questions to be asked of the city's civic governance. Is Bengaluru's infrastructure really commensurate with its status as an international city? What of those tasked with the responsibility of ensuring an efficient municipal administration? Why is it that Bengaluru continues to be afflicted by serious civic apathy, not on the part of its citizens, but its administrators?
When it comes to the BBMP elections, and of course with the elections around the corner, we definitely have to talk about politics, and we have. But what are the core issues that plague the BBMP? What are the problems that the Bangaloreans really want addressed? To talk more about this, I have two prominent Bengalurians here with me. Srinivas, who's a very prominent civic activist from Bengaluru with Janagra at the moment, also Ian Faria, life coach, and also a very popular face in the city. Thank you to both of you all for joining us on this special broadcast. Firstly to you, Srinivas, what are the biggest issues that plague the BBMP and Bengaluru?
Deepak, the depends on who you ask. Bengaluru now has 1.4 crore population. Our own Janagra survey shows that water, for example, is a big issue for the poor, whereas water is not at all issue for the rich. Footpaths are a common issue across rich, poor, men, women, age group, younger, older people. Traffic, everyone thinks traffic is a big problem, but only for the rich people. Not so much for the lower middle class and the poor people. Traffic doesn't feature as a big issue. The development of Bengaluru has become unequal. We found out that 97% of people know the name of the Prime Minister. 89% could name the Chief Minister. Not even 13% could name the last mayor of Bengaluru. So that reflects the overall understanding citizens have about city governance itself, the third tier of governance. So their lack of understanding that such a thing exists translate into lack of participation in the elections itself. So if we create more awareness that BBMP is not some agency that does some work, but we actually have an elected representative there.
So has brand Bengaluru been affected? While we have these sort of fancy roads coming up and all of that, but the traffic is a perennial problem. Potholes is still leading to loss of lives.
I think Bangalore is definitely affected, and in a major way. And what I find is, see, unless we choose good leaders, all of us can have the best of ideas, but somebody has to give the instruction to get the idea enacted, right? But we need to go and click the button there for the electorate. I think that's a civic responsibility all of us should have. And I don't think we have it. Like he was quoting just now, 40-50% electorate coming to vote, that's really pathetic. We need to make a noise. We need to go out there and be noticed. But if we want to just make phone calls and say the phone is busy all the time, it's not going to cut it. So get out there, show your face, stop using social media for everything. Everything is not solved on social media or messages to the PM.
The Brihad Bengaluru Mahanagarapalikate is an elected body, but the council elections have not been held for a year, and there have been reasons for this.
The Garden City of Bengaluru, or the Silicon City of Bengaluru, however you may call it, has changed quite a bit in the last few years. We've seen the city grow in terms of population and also in terms of size, and with it, the issues plaguing the city especially have increased quite a bit and changed dramatically. Now, up until now, there have been 198 wards where the BBMP elections have been contested. This time, however, there are multiple changes that we are going to see in how the elections are going to be fought. Firstly, there's going to be 243 seats up for grabs. Then, of course, comes the issue of the delimitation, where the wards have been reshaped, and some of them say that it's going to favor some political parties and some of them stand at a disadvantage. Also, the reservation factor is something that's going to be keenly looked at when these elections are fought. So with all of these dynamics involved, which party stands to gain and which stands to lose? Well, take a look for yourselves. The delimitation exercise, this is something that, many Congress leaders in the past, including you, have raised and said that it's going to be massive disadvantage for, the opposition in particular. Could you explain to our viewers, how do you think this is an, exercise that is going to not benefit you or rather benefit the BJP?
So, it's not about whether it benefits the opposition or the Congress party or not. It is about whether it will benefit the city as a whole. Okay. So our problem is not only with the delimitation exercise, our problem was with the act itself, the way the act is formulated. With a 243 member council, we feel that the 198 member council itself was a burden on the city. Such a large city with such a huge organization like BBMP cannot solve and take care of Bangalore.
A very good evening. You're watching News Pulse with me, Kritsween Wala. Let's quickly start with the latest we're tracking with regards to Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations in the state of Karnataka. Now remember, the Supreme Court has ordered status quo to be maintained in the Bengaluru Idgah Maidan case and has said Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations will not take place there the next 2-3 days. Meanwhile, the Karnataka High Court, in a parallel development, dismissed the plea of the Muslim body allowing Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations at the Hubballi's Idgah Maidan. The Hubballi Dharwad Municipal Corporation, remember, had earlier decided to allow installation of Ganpati idol for 3 days at the site. That's the status as far as the Hubli Idgah Maidan goes. But for the moment, as we have accessed the order copy of the top court as well with regards to the Bengaluru Idgah Maidan Ganesh Chaturthi festivals, let's quickly tell you what the order copy states, and Harish is also joining us on the phone line before I take it up with Imran on the kind of preparations that are underway in Hubli. Harish, to you first, take us through what the order copy states. We're also learning that the writ petition is still pending before the single bench of High Court and has been fixed for hearing on the 23rd of this month, or of the next month.
Yes, that's right. The order copy says, heard learned counsel for the parties. The writ petition is pending before the single bench of the High Court and has been fixed for hearing on 23/9/2022. All questions issues may be agitated in the High Court. In the meanwhile, status quo as of date with regard to the land in question shall be maintained by both the parties. The special leave petitions are accordingly disposed of. So this order essentially means that, as reported earlier, the Supreme Court has in fact revived the single judge's order that of status quo, which means that the Bangalore Municipal Corporation or the Karnataka state government cannot hold any Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations at the Bangalore Idgah ground. And the Supreme Court has said that balance of convenience was of the privacy view that balance of convenience is in favor of the petitioners, because the Waqf has argued that last 200 years they have been in the possession of the property and no such celebration had been going on in the property, and therefore there is no occasion to grant such a permission to hold such a celebration this year. So Supreme Court had also found the privacy merit in the argument of the Waqf Board and the Muslim bodies, so that this could create a communal problem in that
Absolutely.
area.
And Harish, just for better clarity, the writ petition that is mentioned in this order copy, does it talk about the land ownership issue that's still sub judice, that matter?
Yes, the order basically means that all the issues raised here pertaining to the possession, the ownership, and the correct interpretation of the 1964 Supreme Court judgment, and also various revenue records which were cited in the Supreme Court as a valid proof by the Waqf Board to prove their ownership. At the same time, the government also used these revenue slips to say that
this order copy makes it amply clear, Harish, that the order that has come out from the Supreme Court demanding that status quo be maintained is for the next 2-3 days with regards to the proposed Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations at the Idgah Maidan in Bangalore. Thank you for joining us with those details. Let's quickly take this to Imran, who's joining us from the Idgah ground in Hubli. Imran, as far as developments on that front go, it was a relief for all those who sought worshipping of the Ganesha idol at the Idgah Maidan there, a setback for the Muslim body that moved the Karnataka High Court. What kind of preparations do you see around yourself?
Well, you see, I am at the historic Hubli Idgah Maidan there, but it has been a point of controversy for many years now, where Hindu groups for the past 12 years have been trying to have Ganesh Chaturthi celebration here at this point. And you can see at the moment the entire area has covered by police there. Rapid Action Force have also been deployed here. Nobody is allowed to go beyond this gate. This is the historic Idgah Maidan. If a camera can ask you, what you're seeing is the police has put up a pandal there. That is where the Ganesh pandal will be there, where celebration will happen. At the moment, they have orally given permission for the Hindu groups here to start preparing for the Ganesh pandal. In a few hours from now, the preparation will start. We earlier spoke to the VHP leader here who had come here to oversee the preparations. He informed us that within another 2 hours, all this 4-feet Ganesh Chaturthi Ganesha idol will be installed at this place, along with the posters of Savarkar and Tilak also will come up here. He said that Savarkar is their ideal, their hero, so his poster will definitely come up, which has become a point of contention in Karnataka over the past. Since Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we've seen that many places where Savarkar's photo has come up, people have opposed it. Even in Chikmagaluru, we saw during the Ganesh Pandal there, the Savarkar's poster has come up. opposition has also objected to it, saying that should not make it a communal issue. But the BHP person we spoke to said that will be there. So in a few hours from now, the preparation will start for the pandal
All right,
here.
so while
But,
there's been a
heavy
setback for the Karnataka government with regards to the Bengaluru Idgah Maidan, a little bit of relief coming in. Tomorrow we'll see installation of the Ganesha idol there in Hubballi itself. Thank you, Imran. We'll keep coming back to you. For the moment, viewers, we need to shift our focus to a very important story. Viewers, Jharkhand is witnessing a spate of crime against women. First, we saw that a girl named Ankita was burned to death in Dumka. Now, another shocker has emerged from Ranchi, where a domestic help was held captive for years and tortured by a now suspended BJP leader. In the wake of these shocking crimes, what do you normally expect the state government to do? You'd expect them to ensure justice to the victims and their families. But sadly, that's not the case in Jharkhand. Chief Minister Soren is busy saving his chair, being least concerned about what's happening to the daughters in the state. Soren and his MLAs today flew the state and have reached Raipur in Chhattisgarh to keep their flock together. Now, viewers, this comes as the state of Jharkhand witnessed two shocking incidents of brutality within just 10 days. In Dumka, Ankita was burned to death after she rejected the advances of her lover. Petrol was poured on her and she was torched while she was sleeping. In capital Ranchi, a tribal woman employed as a domestic help in a now suspended BJP leader's house was held captive for years altogether. She was beaten up, made to lick urine, thrashed with iron rod and burnt with hot pan.
हाँ लोहा का उससे मारा
तुम सही हो जाएगी, तुम एकदम सही होगी। हाँ। ठीक ना, है ना?
हम चाहते हैं ना जब ठीक होंगे ना हम आगे और पढ़ना चाहिए।
एकदम एकदम हम लोग पढ़ाएंगे बेटा, हम लोग पढ़ाएंगे बाबू।
जानते हैं जब कहानी गई ना तब वो जो बेल्ट है ना उसको मारती थी।
आपको उसका बेल्ट है ना?
हाँ, और इजू है ना छोटा और कल्ची था।
आपको कल्ची से मारी है? वही मारी मैडम?
हाँ,
सीमा पता है?
हाँ, और जानते हैं भैया जो गरम तवा चला के मारी।
What's more shocking is that in the midst of this absolute brutality, arrangements have been made for Soren and his MLAs to have a booze party at the Raipur resort. Times now caught a Chhattisgarh government vehicle taking expensive liquor bottles to the resort even before the arrival of these MLAs.
ये देख सकते हैं कि इस वक्त हम मेफेयर रिसोर्ट्स के सामने हैं और यहाँ पर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ छत्तीसगढ़ आबकारी विभाग की गाड़ी आ चुकी है और ये देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर जो है विधायकों के लिए शराब की व्यवस्था की गई है। तस्वीरों में आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर ये देखिए महंगी महंगी विदेशी शराब की व्यवस्था यहाँ पर की गई है। ये तस्वीरें देख सकते हैं, ये देखिए ये ग्लैंड फिटीज, ये शराब की बोतलें देख सकते हैं कि ये देखिए महंगी महंगी शराब की व्यवस्था इसी मेफेयर रिसोर्ट्स में की गई है। ये देख सकते हैं ये अलग अलग देख सकते हैं। इसके अलावा जो है ये
तस्वीर आपको दिखाने की कोशिश करते हैं।
ब्लैक डॉग ग्लैंड फिटीज तमाम जो शराब की पूरी एक बोलेरो गाड़ी जो है भरकर यहाँ पर लाई गई है कि झारखंड के जो विधायक यहाँ पर पहुंचे उन्हें किसी भी तरह की कोई दिक्कत नहीं हो। सिवॉस रीगल ऐसे जो तमाम जो है अलग अलग शराब के जो ब्रांड है वो यहाँ पर लाए गए हैं। देख सकते हैं कि विधायकों को किसी भी तरह कोई दिक्कत ना हो, इसलिए ये बताइए कहाँ किसके लिए ले जा रहे हो शराब?
कुछ सर बताएंगे।
नहीं कौन सर बताएंगे? छत्तीसगढ़ सरकार की गाड़ी है, ये लिखा हुआ है आबकारी विभाग की और यहाँ पर आप ये देख सकते हैं कि पूरी शराब यहाँ पर लाई गई है। ये पूरी गाड़ी भरी हुई है। ये देख सकते हैं ब्लैक डॉग के अलावा जो है ये ग्लैंड फिटीज देख सकते हैं।